What? There was such a thing. This should be another of by Ruoqi's accusations again. By Ruoqi fooling about with a man? How could this be? It's hard to say, I've also heard this rumor. It was also told very vividly. But she's a 6th grade talent. How could she put any ordinary man in her sight? What by Ruoqi declared had brought forth yet another wave of clamors. When the emperor saw her act like this, he was displeased and said, "Chi girl, Jean knows that you've suffered. Your face has been injured, but that can be healed with a high-grade pill. Once you've fully recovered, I will decree you a proper marriage, a grand one at that. Just leave your grudges with your third sister. It's time to let go." By Ruoqi replied, "Your Majesty, it's not Chia who doesn't want to let go, but it's just that I can't watch His Highness get tricked by her. My third sister by Ruoqi is a promiscuous girl. Not only did she get caught red-handed with a man in bed, just 10 days ago, she even entered the auction with a mysterious man. Even His Highness can bear witness to that." The Crown Prince had actually almost completely forgotten that incident until by Ruoqi brought it up once again. When he was reminded of it, his heart almost jumped out. That's right. That time, that girl was with a mysterious man who had a terrifying cultivation level. Moreover, they seemed quite close. The two of them were in there together for such a long time. Did the two of them really have the relationship between a man and a woman? Although his consort's strength was the most important, her mannerisms could largely be ignored. However, if the lady was promiscuous and let the man wear a green hat, this is something every man cannot bear. Not to mention with his status as the kingdom's crown prince. The crown prince's face immediately became stiff. By Ruoqi knew that what she said had an impact. She thus sneered and continued, "Your Majesty, Chia definitely did not lie, I have a witness. The last time when my sister was caught red-handed fooling with a man, we've detained that man. I have already ordered people to bring that man to the palace. Your Majesty, please allow that man to enter the palace to testify." Witness? You've even brought the witness? Is it true that there was such a thing? The emperor and empress looked at each other in dismay. Never would they have thought that things would have taken such a drastic turn. This was a very awkward situation, considering that by Ruoqi was yet of age. Being only 14 this year, to fool around with a man such a thing has never crossed their minds. She hadn't even grown up. To do such things at such an age was very unlikely. By Ruoqi being jealous of her and weaving rumors was more like it. However, this matter was still related to the honor of the royal family. Huang Yueli shook her head and said, "Second sister, enough of all these ruckus. Haven't you had enough of making many jokes of yourself today? Now it's to the point of creating a joke to malign me." "Malign?" By Ruoqi retorted with a sneer. "You don't even dare to see the witness and dare to say that I am maligning you. If you have no guilty conscience, do you dare to confront him?" Huang Yueli looked at her with a thread of sympathy and softened her tone. "Second sister, stop making a fuss. Haven't we lost enough face for our family today? Do you want to destroy the entire reputation of the Bai family?" Huang Yueli looked at her as if looking at a joke, and this infuriated by Ruoqi greatly. At this moment, the imperial tutor spoke up. "As far as I see it, I think that what second miss of the Bai family has mentioned sounds reasonable. Since there are such vile rumors going around and there's a witness to this, why don't we call people in and thoroughly investigate it? If third miss of the Bai family really did not those things, we'll clear things up once and for all, or else if those was left uncleared, who knows what rumors will spread to the people. You can also listen on." The imperial tutor was just harshly rejected by Ruoqi, and she had left him in a very awkward position. He was already filled to the brim with rage, and now such a chance had presented itself to him. He couldn't wait to use it to retaliate. Now with such an opportunity, he can use by Ruoqi's stage to tear that girl off the pedestal. The emperor had to give some face to the imperial tutor, and he also had to clear the name of the future crown prince's consort. If this wasn't handled properly now, if unseen circumstances happened in the future, things will get only messier. Hence, the emperor also agreed to the suggestion of the imperial tutor and called the witness into the palace to interrogate him. "Li girl, the royal family doesn't doubt you. However, since someone has mentioned such a thing and all the nobles are also present, This is necessary to clear all the allegations against you. This is your reputation, and since you're not guilty, we will clear things up, and I promise you that whoever dares to frame and malign you will be punished dearly," the Empress said in a grave tone. The Empress was worried that Bai Ruoli was unhappy and added a few more words to appease her. Huang Yueli had no intention of wasting any more of her precious time here. That wretched Bai Ruoqi and unexpectedly splashed her with a bucketful of filthy water. Her heart was cold and she looked at Bai Ruoqi with a chill in her eyes. What is this second sister up to now? A moment later, a golden-scaled guard escorted a man over and brought him forward. As soon as the man entered the hall, everyone's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. "Chi girl, you are saying that this man here was the very man that was caught in bed with Li girl?" For a long time, the emperor gawked at the sight before him before he could compose himself. Cough cough. "I think there's definitely a misunderstanding somewhere." The empress spoke with a shaky voice. Even all the daughters of the nobles that were present who were originally waiting to watch a good show were all taken aback. At this moment, they looked at each other and could not believe their eyes that such a thing was happening. The man in front of them was really ugly. His face was full of pockmarks, his legs were uneven, and even his mouth drooped to one side. Moreover, he was just an ordinary person without any cultivation. What an impression! With Bai Ruoli's cultivation level, what kind of degree of brain damage would it take to hook up with such a man? Bai Ruoqi saw everyone's reaction and realized that she might have overdid it a bit. About a month ago, when she drugged her third sister with the intention to frame her, she had deliberately found a man that was ugly to the extreme. She wanted that wench to feel indignant and shame, and so she would go hang herself. If she were to find her a handsome man like Prince Yu, wouldn't it be too much of a bargain for her? Today, she had already planned this ahead and had arranged for that ugly man to wait outside the palace. At that time, Bai Ruoqi had planned to drug Bai Ruoli at the banquet and let Bai Ruoli look like she had a miscarriage. After drawing the suspicion of the empress, she would then bring him in as a witness, and this would push Bai Ruoli into the abyss. However, what she planned never happened, and she was plotted against by that hateful wench instead, so the witness never had the chance to appear. Until now. She finally found an opportunity to bring him in. However, the situation had changed once again. Who would have thought that from a renowned waste, she had suddenly transformed into a genius? So who would ever believe that she would ever be interested in such an ugly man? Bai Ruoqi's original killing move was now receiving an entirely opposite result. You can also listen on. Bai Ruoqi's intestines were all green by now and regretted that she did not find a bald man to play the role instead. Everything was too late now. Seeing that both the emperor and empress had deep frowns on their foreheads and they didn't seem the least bit convinced, she could only continue to insist and grit her teeth through her plot. "Your Majesty, please know that even though this man is ugly, he's very the man who was caught in bed with my third sister. It's true. I saw it with my own eyes. Is it true? You'd better not be sprouting your mouth off to defame your sister, or else we will not spare you." The empress was obviously not taken in by this unbelievable tale, and she looked at Bai Ruoqi dubiously. Bai Ruoqi turned her head to look at Bai Ruoli and exclaimed loudly, "Bai Ruoli, after seeing Wang family's second master, how can you still stand there and act all innocent? Don't tell me that you've forgotten that day at my birthday party. You were in the court embracing that man naked at the back of my courtyard. What did you do? Your heart should be well aware. Wow. Naked and embracing together? Is it true? Never expected that the third mistaste is so heavy. However, the way Bai Ruoqi says it like it's the truth. This gossip was indeed very juicy, and all the young ladies were exclaiming about with gusto. Huang Yueli frowned and said, Second sister. How could you say that about me? What knack, and still embracing together? How could you say such shameful words out? Oh, no matter what, I'm your cousin. Even if I had defeated you and you aren't the crown prince consort any longer, how could you say such things about me? She bit her lower lip and looked extremely aggrieved. Originally, no one had believed that Bai Ruoli would be tangled with such a man, and Bai Ruoqi's credibility had also some issues. She had been a sore loser all this while, unwilling to let go of the loss of the title of the Crown Prince's consort. Even if Bai Ruoli didn't say anything, many would not believe Bai Ruoqi and would think that she just defamed her and wanted to frame her. The Empress felt sorry for her and immediately said, "Enough. Bai Ruoqi, you framed your cousin this morning and wasn't successful. Now you're resorting to such a trick again. How could a girl have such a vicious heart? Your Bai family really makes me speechless. The royal family doesn't welcome you at the banquet. Come. Please send second Miss Bai to leave the palace immediately." She had been chased out of the palace by the Empress. She could no longer mix in the aristocratic circle. She immediately pulled away from the golden-scaled guard and anxiously knelt to the ground to plead. She loudly exclaimed, "Empress! Empress! Chia really didn't lie to you. You can ask for Wang's second master's testimony. You can also check if the virgin mark is still there. She did such a shameful thing. On that night, she even attempted suicide by trying to hang herself. She was lucky she was saved in time." Bai Ruoqi sounded so convincing, the Empress was slightly taken aback. She turned to Bai Ruoli and asked, "Leah, what do you have to say?" Huang Yueli stared at the so-called man that she supposedly tangled with and was in deep thoughts for a long while, and she finally recalled. Before she had crossed over, the original Bai Ruoli was drugged by the Bai Ruoqi who had spent so much effort to find such an ugly man to defile her. You can also listen on. However, the physique of Bai Ruoli wasn't really that of a waste, so the drug had limited effect on her, so she had already awoken when the ugly man entered the room. Before she figured out where she was, she saw such an ugly man in such close proximity and she felt a wave of nausea surge up her throat and vomited directly on his face. Naturally, after being puked upon, all the lewd thoughts in Master Wang's mind had dissipated. All that was left was a heavy intent to kill the damn girl. While one fled and the other chased, Bai Ruoqi brought someone to rush in to catch them in the act. Second Master Wang had happened to catch Bai Ruoli then and grappled her neck, with the intention to strangle her. However, to the outsiders, it looked as if they were doing something else. In fact, nothing had transpired between them. As for why Bai Ruoqi had insisted that she had lost her chastity, this could be figured out easily without much thought. Obviously, Second Master Wang did not accomplish the task he had and was afraid that he would be punished, so he reported that he had succeeded. With clear understanding of the ins and outs of the matter, Huang Yueli was not flustered one bit. She turned to the Empress and said innocently, "Your Majesty, I really do not know this man. I also do not know why second sister wants to frame me. She even declared to the entire world that my innocence has been lost. Where did she even hear this from? It's absurd. If Bai Ruoqi believes in Second Master Wang, she would really think that Bai Ruoli was trying all means and ways to wriggle her way out of it. Just keep prattling on excuses by yourself. Let's see what your man has to say." She sneered and gave the Second Master Wang a glance, hinting for him to quickly speak up. Second Master Wang fell to the ground and beads of cold sweat started rolling off his forehead. At first, all he had wanted was to get back 1,000 silver taels to pay back his gambling debts. To even get the first night of a beauty of such a prestigious missy, he had quickly agreed. However, things had not gone the way he had expected, but to get the money, he lied to Bai Ruoqi. Who knew, this matter had been blown way out of proportion and Bai Ruoqi had seized his weakness and threatened him, forcing him to go to the palace to testify. He really regretted it from the bottom of his heart. She actually wanted him to lie to the Emperor and Empress. If he was exposed, how could he still preserve his little life? Even if he wasn't exposed, he would still be labeled as an adulterer. One can likely guess the outcome of this as well. However, if he did not testify against her, his entire family, young and old, including his 80-year-old mother, were in the hands of Bai Ruoqi. If he didn't do as told, his entire family would follow him to his grave. Second Master Wang was trembling. He only started to call out after a few moments, why, yo, Your Majesty. This little one and Miss Bai, Third Miss, really had our moment together. At that time, Third Miss was voluntary as well. I have evidence." "Evidence? What evidence?" Second Master Wang said, "There is a dark red birthmark behind Third Miss' waist. There is also a small mole below her chest. These were all, when we were together. As soon as he said this out, everyone looked blankly at Huang Yueli. One by one they looked at her, scanned her from top to bottom, wishing that they could see through those clothes to see if what that man said was the truth. Even the Empress looked at her, stunned. Leah, child, do you really have the birthmark and mole? Huang Yueli shrugged and replied indifferently, what if there is? What if there isn't? This person here was brought here by Ruoqi. She is my cousin, and to have seen my birthmark when we were children is normal. Telling what she knows to this person, how can this testimony be credible? You can also listen on. A lot of people nodded in agreement to Huang Yueli's words. Indeed, the man was brought here by Ruoqi. Such privy information could easily be disclosed to him. This was highly likely. The Empress nodded and said, what Leah child said is right. It's distressing that I didn't think about it. She then asked in a harsh tone, Second Master Wang, what other evidence do you have? With such flimsy evidence, you still want to pin down such claims on our Leah? Do you know the crime of deceiving us, the royal family? Second Master Wang's entire back was soaked through in cold sweat. However, the words have already been said, there was no way but to grit his teeth and continue. Empress. This little one really did not lie. The birthmark on third Miss' body was not anything second Miss told me. It was seen by me with my very own eyes. Thinking back, it's really quite embarrassing. I had approached third Miss with the intention to cheat her of some money. Who knew she was so simple-minded that with just a few sweet words, she was hooked on. That's why while he dramatized the entire tale, he had on a resolute look. Your Majesty. This little one does not dare to deceive you. I feel very regretful now. If I had known earlier that third Miss was one of the Crown Prince's consort's candidate, this little one would never have dared to pull such a trick. When he heard the words Crown Prince's consort, the Crown Prince's expression grew darker and darker. It was not easy to select a consort that he was so satisfied with, yet before their marriage, his consort has lost her innocence to another man. Whether this was the truth or not, if such rumors were to leak out, it would smear his reputation. Of all things, Ruoqi's talent was unprecedented. He could not bear to let go. Should he hold on to this talent? Or should he stick to his principles and save his face? In the end, he was stuck in a dilemma. Face or benefit? He couldn't decide. Ruoqi was also chiming in suggestions from the side. Empress, you don't have to listen to all the excuses of Ruoqi. It's easy to verify if her body is chaste. Just ask her to roll up her sleeves and check to see if her virgin mark is still on her arm. She lifted her chin haughtily and she challenged Ruoqi. Do you dare to roll up your sleeves and let everyone see where did your virgin mark disappear to? Her face was full of confidence and she was absolutely certain that Ruoqi would be scared and try all means and ways to talk her way out of it and desperately try to stop them. Who knows? Huang Yueli cast her a gaze full of mockery and simply pulled up her sleeve a little. Second sister, I really do not know what you are talking about. Why can't you speak lesser? When things that can be easily proven with a single look, words can't cover up such blatant lies. On her white and slender wrist, a resplendent red dot was revealed to all. Everyone's gaze shifted over to Ruoqi. Ruoqi is crazy. Scary. She made everything sound so credible. I thought that she'd have some concrete evidence. Tell me, what is this? Who knew? Everything was a farce. Ruoqi is really laughable. Ruoqi's gaze was deadlocked at Huang Rueli's wrist. Her eyes got bigger and bigger and suddenly, she screamed out. Impossible. It's impossible. It must have been painted on after the incident. It's fake. You've lost your innocence. That's what Second Master Wang told me himself. Is that so? Huang Yueli's lips raised to a cold smile. So, if you say that it's fake, that means it's fake. Take a good look at it. Everyone here has eyes that can see the truth of the matter. If you still want to quibble, then I'd say that this entire thing was set up by you. Second Master Wang was sent by you to frame me. Ha! What a joke. What evidence do you have to say that I framed you? Ruoqi retorted irritatedly. You can also listen on. You want evidence? Huang Yueli slowly said, that's easy, all we need is Second Master Wang's testimony. As long as I question him, I will be able to get the truth out. Do you dare to let me interrogate him personally? Bai Ruoqi laughed out loud. What's there for me to be afraid of? If you want to ask, go ahead and ask. The truth of the matter is as what I've said. Even if you ask 1,000 times, the answer will be the same. I'm warning you, I'll be here watching you. You had better not try to mislead the crowd and twist the fact. For a moment there, she still thought that she still had something up her sleeves. She was still feeling apprehensive and thought what other ideas she had came up with. In the end, it was just so that she could interrogate him in person. Whatever that damn girl asked wouldn't make any difference. Second Master Wang's entire family had long been caught by her. If he dared say anything, their entire family would die without any burial. Bai Ruoqi was confident that he wouldn't say anything detrimental and betray her. Huang Yueli laughed lightly. I'm not you, why would I mislead everyone? After that, she turned and faced Second Master Wang. Don't be afraid, I am here. With me around, my sister cannot do anything to you. Now tell me honestly, what you've said just now, is it all true? While she was saying this, she stared into his eyes and converged the energy, and a quick flash of light fleeted across her pupils, and she used the piercing sky eye technique. Second Master Wang only thought that her eyes were dazzling, and it was as if there were unfathomable mysteries behind them, and unknowingly, he was sucked into them. Huang Yueli had done it very discreetly, and no one was able to notice anything out of the normal. When Bai Ruoqi heard the questions asked by Bai Ruoli, she sniggered and laughed in her heart. She couldn't wait to see her crumble in helplessness before her. Who knew, after a short moment, the words that came out of Second Master Wang's mouth was completely different. Third Miss. I'm so sorry I've wronged you. Second Miss caught my whole family and used them to threaten me. I had no choice but to lie to the royal family. I was wrong, I'm willing to bear this sin. But please let me bear it alone. My family is innocent, so, please, I beg you. He knelt down and bowed all the way and kowtowed, knocking his head hard onto the floor, while crying and begging. Bai Ruoqi was stunned and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Only after a moment did she manage to squeeze some words out. You, what nonsense are you blabbering? You're crazy. Or is there something wrong with your brain? She rushed out towards him. She couldn't wait to strangle him there and then. Huang Yueli quickly stood out in front of her and smiled. Sister, wait. Don't get too excited. Didn't you just say that you would let me interrogate him? Why is it that I've only asked one question and you're regretting it already? If you had regretted it, I can stop this interrogation, but that would only prove one thing, that you've framed me. This matter can't be settled so easily. You've been trying to frame me over and over again. I will leave this matter in the hands of the Emperor. Huang Yueli's tone turned cold. You can also listen on. While weighing the pros and cons in her head, she could only choose concessions. All right, continue asking what you want to ask. I'll see what else are you going to ask. After that, she shot Second Master Wang a warning glance and said to him in a threatening manner, Second Master Wang, you are now in front of the royal family. Bear in mind that you had better be mindful of your word. Don't be impulsive and harm yourself as well as your family. These words had hidden meaning behind them, filled with murderous intent. If he was conscious, he would definitely bear that warning in mind and be frightened out of his wits and obey her. But alas, due to the piercing sky eye technique, he was under the impression that Bai Ruoqi was arrogantly domineering and had absolutely no mercy. Hence he could not comprehend the underlying threat in her words. All he knew was that whatever Huang Yueli wanted him to do, he had to do it. It was absolute. He turned a blind eye to Bai Ruoqi's threatening gaze and said loudly, Empress, I did not defile Third Miss. She is still chaste, there's no mistake about it. His words were a complete opposite of what he had said earlier, and this sudden change in the situation left them staring at each other. What's the situation? Didn't that ugly man just said that he had gone all the way with Bai Ruoli? How could his words change so quickly? Yeah, Bai Ruoli's question wasn't very tricky, and yet he just owned everything up. What's this all about? I know. It's called finding his own conscience. Huang Yueli had an indifferent expression all along. She asked, "Why did you say that I have an illicit relationship with you? Tell me the truth." Ruoqi was glaring at him and tried all variations to hint at him with her eyes, but it was no avail. I'll say it. It's all second Miss' idea. That day she had drugged third Miss and instructed me to go to her room and defile her. But who knew that before anything could happen, third Miss woke up and I tried to catch her. The timing was really coincidental. When I had just caught her, the room door was opened and they came in to catch us in action. I didn't manage to do anything, and as for the birthmarks, those were all told to me by second Miss, second Master Wang. Don't you dare malign people. All I've said was true. I beseech you, Your Majesty. Second Miss, you've plotted so much against your own cousin, even resorting to framing her in front of the royal family to destroy her reputation. Aren't you afraid of getting nightmares at night? You. This is not true. I'm innocent. Your Majesty. Ruoqi is really a promiscuous girl. Just that day at the Thousand Treasure Pavilion, she was. But the Emperor and Empress had seen enough of this farce and cut her off before she could finish her words. Who was right, who was wrong, everything was clear in their hearts. Ruoqi simply didn't have the temperament of a lady, and she was just a vindictive persona trying to bring down her own cousin at every single chance she had relentlessly, no different from a mad dog. Such a person, even with talent, she was destined with no future. What's more, now their South Yu had gained a perverse genius who was 100 times more talented than she was. Since she was of no value, the Emperor had no qualms of holding back and need not endure such a sickening personality at all. The Emperor's face sunk and darkened. Enough is enough. Ruoqi, you've said enough. Today, you have repeatedly defamed Li Girl. I had given you a chance to repent, but you stubbornly continued on the wrong path. Come. Drag this girl away and put her in jail. The golden-scaled guards immediately moved forward and executed his orders. Ruoqi still wanted to struggle, and the guards were afraid that she would further antagonize the Emperor, and they quickly dragged her out. You can also listen on. Ruoqi tried to struggle free a few times, but with the golden-scaled guards restraining her pulse, she felt weak and was unable to resist further. The golden-scaled guards dragged her past Huang Yueli. Ruoqi stared at her heinously, her expression as if she couldn't wait to swallow her whole. Huang Yueli only looked back at that blooded face in amusement, her eyes filled with mirth. She raised her hands slightly. Big brother guards, can you please wait a moment? I would like to speak a few words with my sister. The guards immediately stopped when they heard her. She was no longer the waste and good-for-nothing miss. She was now a genius of 6th grade rank. In this world where the strong were revered, she now held power and prestige and immediately gained the respect of all. The reputation and status was now one of the top in this continent. The golden-scaled guards' respect and obedience were from the depths of their heart. Ruoqi glared back and gnashed her teeth. Little slut. What else do you want? I'm telling you, don't think that this matter is over. Just wait and see. I won't let you off so easily. One golden-scaled guard snapped, shut up. He was just about to seal her voice as his fingers deftly moved above her mute acupuncture point. Was this woman crazy? She had already been sentenced to jail, and yet her mouth was running amok and calling such a genius such a derogatory name, and even blabbering such words of arrogance with no sense of remorse. However, Huang Yueli raised her hands to stop him. Her lips curled up slightly as she leaned forward and whispered into Ruoqi's ear, "Second sister, did you want to say that the wounds on your face are only superficial wounds? As long as you have a third-tier beauty pill, your face can be restored? Although your internal injury seems serious, they are in actual fact not, all because I am but only in the chi profound realm. All you need is to spend some time to properly recuperate and you'll recover in no time. By that time, after you've recovered, you can continue cultivating and scheming against me." Having the thoughts in her heart said aloud, Ruoqi only revealed a cold smile. Ha ha ha. Yes, you're right. I won't give up so easily. You only have a few days to remain so proud. TSK, such a shame. Second sister, you won't have such a day. Huang Yueli responded curtly with a sweet smile. Ruoqi looked at the beautiful smile that blossomed on the hateful girl's face. Although it looked sweet and gentle, She could only feel the coldness from it. She didn't know why, but she had an ominous premonition. Huang Yueli said softly, "Well, the day that second sister gets out of jail, you can go and try, see if there's anyone in southern Yu who can treat your face. As for your internal injuries, I'm afraid they won't be cured so easily." "What do you mean?" Huang Yueli laughed and did not explain further. The attacks that she had dealt by Ruoqi with were not simply a copied version of the frost thorns. She had added her own little twist to it. Frankly speaking, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just that her special constitution and ability to manipulate all the elements of the profound qi made such wounds especially difficult to heal. Unless the Bai family can find an alchemist or any divine doctors who were also similarly blessed and had mastered all the elements, otherwise, it would take a few years for Bai Ruoqi's injury to heal. There were several injuries on her face, but she could always wear a mask or veil to cover it. The tricky part was her internal injuries. As long as it rained, her whole body would be assaulted by an unbearable stinging pain. Bai Ruoqi looked at the deep smile of Huang Yueli and subconsciously felt that things were not too good. She screamed out uncontrollably, "Bai Ruoli, what the hell did you do? Say it. What the hell did you do? You." Cough cough. Her sudden outcry once again garnered the attention of everyone in the hall. The golden-scaled guards did not dare tarry any further as one quickly sealed Bai Ruoqi's voice by tapping on her mute acupuncture point. They quickly apologized to Huang Yueli and dragged Bai Ruoqi away. "You can also listen on." Bai Ruoqi felt extremely anxious and her heart was flustered, but she could not say anything at all. Huang Yueli's ambiguous threat made her feel a deep sense of fear and trepidation. Because the unknown always made one's imagination go wild, the more she tried to think of what could happen, the more frightened she felt. Bai Ruoqi's cut of a sorry figure finally disappeared from the large palace doors. Huang Yueli let out a long breath and felt her mood feel much lighter. Bai Ruoqi's fate could be almost certain. She had dug herself this pit and jumped into it on her own. It was all self-inflicted. If she didn't try to bring such harm to her, she herself wouldn't have gotten into this state today. This was revenge for the original owner of this body. Of course Huang Yueli could also directly kill Bai Ruoqi off easily. With her current strength, it was an easy feat. However, Huang Yueli had always felt that such an ending was more befitting of her. For most people, living with such a bleak and dark future was even more painful than death itself. This was especially true for such an arrogant person like Bai Ruoqi. The emperor looked at Bai Ruoqi's back. In the past, his impression of that girl had always been good. She had portrayed herself to be a talented, outstanding individual who had a gentle and endearing disposition. She was someone in the younger generation whom he had appreciated. Who would have thought that in less than a day, she was revealed to be a hysterical, poisonous-hearted, and vicious crazy girl? The emperor shook his head and his gaze returned to Bai Ruoli. "We had all witnessed here today that Bai Ruoli's mind is unsound and no longer suitable to be the crown prince's consort. The words from before are no longer valid. However, the promise between us and Master Bai must still be fulfilled. Leah Girl's outstanding talent is naturally to be paired with our kingdom's most gifted son." After saying this, the emperor paused for a moment. The crown prince was extremely delighted finally. At long last. He had waited for this moment. After today, he would have the most talented beauty as his fiancée. How glorious was this! At Celestial Light Academy, even the #1 core disciple didn't even dare dream of pursuing a goddess of the 6th rank. What's more, this little girl not only had a sensible personality, in appearance-wise, she was very high on the rankings. Adding on to the fact that she was head over heels in love with him since childhood days, as long as he whispered some sweet nothings to her, she'd be captivated easily. To even have such a great stroke of luck, this showed that the heavens really blessed him. He was destined to be a master in his generation. He drew the envious gazes from other princes and all around. What kind of dog-shit luck did this crown prince have? Wasn't that third miss too naive and innocent as well? She actually was willing to marry the crown prince. Did she know what it meant to be talented? Did she know that she could marry a man that was thousands of times stronger than the crown prince? Although the several princes were all filled with jealousy and their inner world had crumbled and almost went mad, no one dared to stand out to voice their opinion. After all, the crown prince was still more powerful than them. If they were to rile things up, he would definitely retaliate, and they did not have the strength to oppose him. Moreover, even if the crown prince was out of the picture, they had no way to chase by Ruoqi. This, in turn, would lead to their southern you losing a 6th-ranked genius, and they would definitely be bearing the brunt of it from the emperor. The several princes did not dare to stand out and stole glances at one another, watching carefully if there would be an idiot amongst them to actually stand out and advise by Ruoqi to not agree so easily to this marriage. This would not only ruin the crown prince's grand plan, and they did not have to bear the consequence of doing it themselves. You can also listen on. Unfortunately, there wasn't a fool amongst them. Those who had lived to such an age who faced palace intrigues every day wouldn't be here then. Naturally, no one spoke out. The emperor smiled. In a slow and deliberate manner, he announced, "Leah girl, among the sons of ours, the one with the highest talent, the most gifted son is the crown prince. I have already listened to your wishes, and I am also appreciate my son Mojun henceforth. I will decree your marriage. Choose an auspicious date to hold the wedding. Of course, I propose an earlier date for both of you to exchange your sacred vows. What do you think?" Everyone's heated gaze fell on the Ruoqi and the crown prince. The princes and those who had higher cultivation levels definitely knew that the crown prince had a steal, and their guts were wretchedly twisted with envy. For those who had lower cultivation levels, especially the noble daughters, were simply clueless and had no idea what this marriage encompassed. They could not even fathom the degree of talent Ruoqi had. All they knew was that their hearts were filled green with envy. This waste in everybody's eyes really flipped the skies today. Not only did she show her outstanding prowess, she even defeated the #1 talent in Southern U. She was even invited to be the imperial tutor's personal disciple. Now, the emperor was decreeing her marriage to the #1 bachelor, the crown prince. Everyone's heart was getting agitated. When the crown prince heard the emperor's words, his aloof smile was hanging on his face. This feeling of superiority over his brothers really made him feel good. Feeling all the envious and hated gazes cast at him made his heart feel so refreshed. Envy me? Feeling jealous? Well, the more they felt these emotions, all the better. He was the best amongst the princes, he had the highest status and had the best talent. Obviously, choosing such an outstanding consort would bring him way out their leagues. The crown prince saw the emperor's meaningful glance and he hurriedly rushed up front. He totally forgot, just moments ago, he had also ecstatically rushed up front and thanked the emperor for bestowing the marriage between Ruoqi and him, and the poor young maiden who was pinning to be married to him was tossed to the back of his mind. When Ruoqi saw the crown prince kneel down, her brows tightened and was just about to speak. However, before she even opened her mouth, a cold voice beat her to it. "Wait a moment. This marriage. I do not agree to it." No one thought that there would be anyone voicing out their opinions at this juncture. After a moment's silence, everyone subconsciously looked at the direction of the voice, trying to see who was so bold and dared to intervene in such a serious occasion. Just one glance and they were all dumbstruck. Prince Yu, Li Moying, stood up from his seat and slowly walked down. He was incomparably handsome and his composed demeanor drew the heated gazes from all the ladies. He turned a blind eye to these gazes and walked straight to Ruoqi. Ruoqi was also stunned in place and stared at the charismatic man who stood before her. Looking at his pair of soul-shaking eyes and his soft lips that had forcibly kissed her so passionately, she suddenly felt dizzy. What was going on? What situation was this? Li Moying, what did he want to do? Moreover, hadn't they already each gone their own separate ways? Didn't that man not bother to look at her all day? Didn't he ignore her? Now why did he suddenly change his mind? And why did he look at her, in such an ambiguous manner? Li Moying's eyes were deep and in them it was as if there was a storm brewing. His intense gaze at Ruoqi was burning, yet it was also chilly at the same time. Ruoqi could not take such a complicated gaze from him and she unknowingly took a step back. You can also listen on. However, the moment she took a step back, Li Moying advanced forward. As he reached out and grabbed her delicate wrist, he pulled her into his arms. He was too strong and she could not resist his overwhelming strength. She was helplessly pulled according to his whim, and when she rested on his broad chest, she immediately felt his powerful arms wrap around her waist. The strong arms slowly tightened firmly and she was pulled into an embrace. Huang Yueli had almost hit her nose against his chest, and by the time she had noticed, she had been trapped firmly within his arms. His cold and repressive aura mixed with his strong and masculine demeanor was a fatal mix, and she had to remind herself to breathe. "You, Li Moying, let go of me this instant." Huang Yueli pushed his chest several times, but he remained still like a mountain. At this time, everyone else just recovered from the shock and the entire hall was filled with exclamations. Prince Yu? His Highness Prince Yu? Heavens! What is he doing? Why did he suddenly hug Bai Ruoqi so intimately? Don't tell me the voice that didn't agree to the marriage was him? Is it true that His Highness and Bai Ruoqi have something going on? What do they have going on? An illicit affair? Or a heartrending romance? But so what? Is he going to fight with the Crown Prince over a woman? What is there to dare when he has already done it? Damn, this Prince Yu doesn't want to live anymore. Look at the Crown Prince's expression. He looks like he's ready to kill any moment. That's it. Prince Yu's finish. That's such a waste. He's such a looker. My eyes haven't had enough of my eye candy. If the Crown Prince chops him up, everyone was shocked. However, no one could replace the intensity of the shock the Crown Prince felt. He stared menacingly at Li Moying with a murderous glint in his eyes. Li Moying, what are you doing? My good second brother. Appearing suddenly, moreover you're holding my fiancé in such an affectionate manner. Li Moying wasn't affected by him one bit, and he simply returned him with a light smile. A taunting gaze mixed with disdain fleeted past Li Moying's face, and he corrected his expression to a more casual and aloof smile. This, however, made all the surrounding ladies' hearts thump as a round of silent sighs went around. What do you mean by your fiancé? Leah is this lord's woman. This lord will hold her however I want. However I want to hug her is as I please is up to me. Even if you are the Crown Prince, you have no right to how I should hold my woman, right? What did you say? The Crown Prince was shocked and angered to the point that his voice trembled and his eyes flared wide open. You, when did the both of you hook up? You actually dare to do such a blasphemous thing? Huang Yueli's eyes widened. She really did not expect Li Moying to suddenly appear and forcibly hug her and proclaim such word. What was this, his woman? How could that stinky man be so shameless? They were an unmarried man and an unmarried woman. How could he say, his woman, so casually? That was too shameless. Moreover, this wasn't even a fact. She was never with him at all. She had rejected him countless times. Everyone was now watching her intensely, and she attempted to struggle out of his embrace even harder. While pushing him away, she did not forget to refute fiercely. What kind of joke is that? I'm not your woman. I have no relations with you whatsoever. Li Moying, I'm warning you, stop spouting nonsense. Quick, release me. However, the more she struggled, the tighter his hold on her was. He lowered his head and looked at her softly. His lips hooked up into a languid smile and he gently said, "All right, Leah, be good, stop kicking a fuss. You can also listen on." A bead of perspiration trickled down Huang Yueli's forehead. What was this man up to now? What's more, talking to her and using such a magnetic voice in such an ambiguous manner. After listening to his words, everyone who heard it would guess that the two of them really had something going on, right? Truth be told, this presumption was very accurate. The emperor looked at them for a moment before frowning. You two. Li Moying, Leah girl, the two of you, when did the two of you get together? Huang Yueli gritted her teeth. Your Majesty, you've misunderstood, we are not, page. She could not believe the man that stood before her. Li Moying actually bowed down and lightly pecked her lips, forcibly blocking all the words she wanted to say. While holding her, Li Moying said, "Imperial father, this son of yours has long been in love with third miss of the Bai family. We've been secretly meeting for a long time. You, Li Moying, don't say such, Pate. Li Moying's expression darkened and gave her a look of warning as he snuggled up to her at the same time. Huang Yueli saw the evil glint in his eyes and thought that he wanted to kiss her again, hence she hurriedly covered her mouth. Li Moying smiled mischievously and gave her a long deliberate look, but he did not inch forward this time round. Instead, with his eyes full of adoration, he spoke in a very affectionate manner. All right. Leah, I know that you are worried that my imperial father would blame me. You are also scared that this would get me in conflict with my imperial brother, so you've been denying our relationship this whole time. However, as a man, how can I let you suffer such grievance? The fact is that we're together, so I must be responsible. Responsible? Utter rubbish. Huang Yueli was flustered and exasperated at the same time. I've already said it, words can't be spoken so carelessly. Do you, Pate? This time round, Li Moying found her too noisy and he directly sealed her voice by tapping on her mute acupuncture point. Huang Yueli was instantly stunned. Although her voice had been sealed, his actions this time round rendered her totally tongue-tied as her mouth dropped open and she blinked blankly at him before the fire in her eyes started burning with rage. She was extremely gloomy. Why did she always suffer a loss when she was dealing with this man? Since he couldn't win her in speech, he directly sealed her voice. Was he a prince or a bandit? Li Moying calmly removed his gaze and seemed to not have any guilt despite the dagger eyes directed at himself. For a moment there, he was actually enjoying a twisted kind of pleasure. Today, his little fox had never once looked at him, and now that she was staring at him so intently with such focus, he actually felt elated. Not bad, his position in her heart was different than the normal. Of course, the emperor couldn't see Li Moying's secret move. All he saw was that the two of them interacted very closely. Although Huang Yueli had always denied the relationship between the two of them, the attitude displayed towards Li Moying was clear to the eyes of the people. This was absolutely not the way one interacts with towards a stranger or an ordinary friend. The two of them, naturally had a relationship that was beyond that of friends. From the looks of things, they were obviously emotionally entangled. The emperor coughed and interrupted the two in the midst of their wordless war. Li Moying, tell me what is going on. Tell me the truth. Yes, imperial father. Li Moying bowed his head and replied, what your son has said earlier was the truth. Because when I met Leah, we were seen by Ruoqi. This was why she would think of finding someone to ruin Leah. Honestly, we've been together secretly all because your son doesn't want to affect her future. That's why we've kept our relationship under wraps. Say what? What in this world was this man jabbering about? Huang Yueli couldn't speak, so she could only lift her leg to kick. Li Moying was kicked for some time. After smothering his voice, he raspily whispered in her ears, do you know that the more you struggle within my embrace, the more it looks like we're an affectionate couple? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli really wanted to say, if you have the capabilities, then there's no need to hug me. Then no one would misunderstand. However, she couldn't say it out. Li Moying looked at her cheeky face and his eyes smiled. Sigh, there's no choice, he probably owed her in his last life. Even if this small fox refuses to admit that she likes him, even if she always speaks in a tongue-in-cheek manner, mercilessly rejecting him time and time again, he still could not stand by the side and watch her get engaged to another man. He couldn't do it. His little fox was his alone. Even if he were to directly destroy her marriage like what he just did now, and the little thing were to see through his false bravado and his true feelings that he had tried too hard to bury deep within surfaces, which in turn would damage his self-esteem and pride. To hell with it. Anyway, he had always wanted this little fox to be his. No other man can touch her, even though it's just a nominating a fiancé in name, it can't be any other man. After he came to terms with his own feelings, his heart felt liberated and his heart was thumping wildly with joy. The pent-up frustration which he had felt for many days were all swept away in one go. Huang Yueli saw that his expression had loosened up, and from the side she could also see that there was a slight smile on his face as well. However, this triggered the alarm bells in her heart instead. This man seldom laughed so happily. This means that someone else was in trouble. Who was the unlucky one? It wouldn't be her, right? Li Moying's gaze rested his gaze on her and his expression became serious and dignified. Imperial Father, please give us your blessings to Leah and I. Please grant us this marriage. Before the Emperor could say anything, the Crown Prince had already jumped up. No. What nonsense are you saying? Leah is my fiancée. Do you mean that you want to snatch your own sister-in-law? Imperial Father has already given his word and bestowed Leah and my marriage. Imperial Father and Imperial Mother have already agreed to decree our marriage. Li Moying revealed a mocking smile. Isn't your consort by Ruoqi? She was the person that was decreed to you in marriage. She's still your fiancée before Imperial Father annuls it in another decree. Imperial Brother should not be mistaken. You. The Crown Prince was countered by him and for a moment there, he did not know how to refute. His face flushed red and he was seething mad. Li Moying. This means that you've hardened your heart and want to snatch people from me? Compared to the agitated Crown Prince, Li Moying had on a calm and indifferent expression, as if he did not even put the Crown Prince's warnings in his eyes. Imperial Brother, you're thinking too much. I'm not snatching. Leah has always been my woman. The Crown Prince was almost on the verge of laughing out in anger. Your woman? Just based on your words? And with your talent? Do you know what a genius Leah is? A 6th grade talent. She's a proud daughter of heaven. If she were to be paired with a waist like you, how pathetic would that be? Your worth can't even account for one finger of hers. Do you even know how to write the word shame? Li Moying's gaze turned cold. Who? So Imperial Brother does know what shame is? Then with your 5th grade garbage talent, you actually think you can match my Leah? As a core disciple of Celestial Light Academy, how could you not know that talented females are very rare, even more than their male counterparts? They are highly appreciated, so based on your talent, you even dare dream of marrying a 6th grade talent. You. What do you mean? Don't try to talk yourself out of it and try to confuse people here. The Crown Prince's heart thumped wildly. He didn't think that his plan would be exposed just like that, moreover, in front of so many people. In South Yu, he had always been the object of love of all the ladies. Any girl would be proud to marry him. However, now someone actually said that he was climbing. You can also listen on. This was simply sweeping his self-esteem and dignity on the floor. What's more, what if the words were heard by Leah and she wakes up and decides not to marry him? What should he do? With his head full of such thoughts, the Crown Prince subconsciously looked at by Ruoqi, trying to discern her expression, afraid to see the look of comprehension on her pretty face. However, it would have been better if he didn't look at all because the more the looked, the more the rage in his stomach grew. Not once did the little girl turn to look at him, she was totally absorbed in looking at Li Moying. Her expression was complicated, as if there were hundreds of words that were held back in her heart. Moreover, she was in the arms of Li Moying and a crimson blush was obvious against her fair complexion, looking particularly attractive. Steam was almost coming out from the Crown Prince's head. What the hell? Wasn't he just a tad bit more handsome than he was? Just a tad bit more charismatic? Was it necessary to look at him in such a way, or was her eyesight that bad that she had to take such a long look at him? To put it plainly, Li Moying was a total trash in cultivation. With only looks and no strength, so what? Strength was the most important in this world. Did he want to be a gigolo? Of course the Crown Prince did not know that the gaze she had for Li Moying that looked like affectionate gaze from his point of view was actually a smirk. And the red-crimson lush on her fair maiden's face was actually not because of shyness but it was flushed red with anger. Li Moying, it seems that you won't do this the easy way, then we'll do it the hard way. The Crown Prince was about to blow his top. If Bai Ruoqi was looking at a man that was far more competent than him, he had nothing to say, or rather, he really had no choice or say in the matter. However, the focus of her affection was Li Moying, that trash. Did he really think that just based on his handsome face, he would be able to seduce his woman? This was simply an insult to the first genius in Southern Yu. The Crown Prince was so angry and anxious at the same time that he could no longer maintain his composure. His indifferent expression had long since crumbled and darkened to the point of looking menacing. Since you want to snatch from me my woman, it's not entirely impossible. But you'll have to follow the rules. Imperial Father has already mentioned that only the strongest among us princes would be eligible for Leah's hand in marriage. So let's have a duel and we'll compete fairly on the trial ground. As long as you defeat me, I have nothing to say. Li Moying frowned slightly. You want to have a duel with me? He really didn't expect that there were really such idiots. Crown Prince did not put much thought into it. If Li Moying really was a waste, would he dare to come out during such an occasion today? However, the Crown Prince had already lost all rationality, and when he saw the frown on Li Moying, he thought that he was scared and couldn't help but feel proud. Yes. I challenge you to a duel. If you want Imperial Father to grant you this marriage, there's only this way. Of course, you have to follow the rules. Or, do you not dare to? Not even having the guts to accept this challenge, such a cowardly man like you is undeserving of Leah. The Crown Prince's face was full of arrogance and he was looking forward to tearing off Li Moying's calm facade. However, there was no change in expression on Li Moying, only his eyes seemed colder. He harumphed and said, "Since you are looking forward to death so much, come on, I'm looking for death." The Crown Prince laughed coldly and retorted, In the end, who's the one that's looking for death? Looks like your feelings for Leah is true, not even caring about your own life. Well, I shall grant you a fast death." He immediately turned around and headed in the direction of the trial grounds. "Wait. Stop." Lym called out from behind. The Crown Prince turned and sneered. "Why? Regretting it already? Quickly release Leah and admit that you're in the wrong by kowtow, You can also listen on." Before he could even finish his sentence, his chest felt stifled as an impressive aura of oppressiveness filled the entire hall. The Crown Prince bore the brunt of the pressure, feeling something burst in his chest followed by a wave of dizziness as he felt a mouthful of blood rushing up his throat. He was so close to vomiting out that mouthful of blood. Needless to say, there was nothing more he could say to follow up with his prior statement. He expended a large amount of effort to finally swallow back that sickening liquid that had welled up in his throat, however his eyes were filled with horror. The Crown Prince stared incredulously at Li Moying, as if this was the first time meeting this younger brother of his. You. Li Moying grasped the struggling little fox in one arm, raised his head and said in a cold voice, "What trial grounds? That's too much of a hassle. Let's just settle it here and now. On the account that you are my brother, I'll concede 3 strokes to you." He said it in a very casual and relaxed manner, however, all who heard it became shocked and were rendered speechless. No one would have thought that the legendary sickly and weak Prince Yu, who could very well collapse any moment, would actually be a hidden expert. The profound chi he released was on a completely different level from the Crown Prince. No one present could see through his cultivation level. What did all this signify? Even the Imperial Tutor's face had made a drastic change at this time and was frozen in shock. The Imperial Tutor could feel that the profound chi emitted by Li Moying was very pure yet powerful. It was filled with an overwhelming oppressiveness. Despite everything, he could not see through his cultivation level at all. There's nothing more to say about the Crown Prince, who had already been struck cold in his heart and his back was already drenched in cold sweat. Heavens! How was this possible? When had Li Moying been so strong? This must be an illusion. How could such a thing happen? Unfortunately, this was not an illusion and it was the cruel and harsh reality that he had to face. Li Moying waited for a while and saw that the Crown Prince was still frozen in place while gaping at him in disbelief. He furrowed his brows impatiently. "Imperial brother, how is it? Are you still going to make your move? If you are, faster. This lord is in a hurry." He was too eager to find a place where no one else was there to obstruct the two of them. He couldn't wait to tame the restless little fox in his arms. Time was precious and could not be wasted. From the moment he saw her, all he wanted to do was kiss her, and it didn't help that this little thing had been stuck to him for so long. Honestly speaking, he really wanted to kiss her right at this very moment. However, if he really dared to kiss her in front of such a large audience, this little fox would definitely get very mad. If you are not going to start, then this lord will not stand on ceremony. Li Moying was thinking of starting the first offense when the Crown Prince suddenly shouted out, "Have a taste of this." Immediately after, the Crown Prince pulled out a brilliant long sword from the scabbard that was hanging by his waist, and a silver flash rushed out towards Li Moying. Only that his sword tip was directed not at Li Moying but the beloved woman in his arms. The Crown Prince sneered. He knew that he would not be able to defeat Li Moying, so he simply attacked the woman in his arms. If Bai Ruoli was really Li Moying's beloved woman, then he would definitely protect her. He had to make use of everything in his disposal to try to get a chance to strike a fatal blow. Hence he grabbed onto this weakness, and it would be easy to reveal any flaws. The Crown Prince was a cultivator with wind attributes, hence his actions were immensely fast. What looked like one move was in fact a quick succession of a flurry of movements and had already attacked the both of them. With Li Moying's sharp eyes, he could naturally see the direction of the sword tip was directed to. In an instant, he saw red. He was really angry right now. You can also listen on. This idiot of a Crown Prince actually dared to use a sword and wanted to stab his little fox. He actually dared to hurt her. He was truly seeking death. If the Crown Prince only directed his attacks to Li Moying, he would not have been so mad. He would only have thought of him as a stupid and ridiculous fool. However, he actually wanted to attack his little fox. He had totally crossed the bottom line of Li Moying. Even though he was absolutely certain that he could protect his little fox from harm, he was still furious. Even if it was just the slightest thought of hurting his little fox, it was taboo. Moreover, the Crown Prince had attacked with full force. Li Moying shifted his body slightly and made sure that Huang Yueli was safely behind him as he stood in front of her like a towering shield. The Crown Prince's eyes lit up, thinking that Li Moying had already fallen for his trap. He valiantly rushed forward and stabbed right towards his back. The tip of the sword successfully connected to Li Moying's back, but he couldn't stab it in. The Crown Prince immediately added more strength to his hands, but it was all to no avail. It was as if he was stabbing a copper wall. His defense was impenetrable. The next moment, the Crown Prince felt a strong and powerful profound chi surge in from the sword, and it quickly enveloped his arms, and what he felt next was as if his chest was lit on fire. The Crown Prince was caught unprepared, and he had absolutely not time to defend. His entire person was blown back. Puff, puff. Only after a few moments did the Crown Prince land heavily against the large sturdy door. Your Highness. Oh my. Quick. Save him. The change was too abrupt. The Crown Prince couldn't react in time to the sudden attack. He was still in the midst of his attack when he was suddenly blown away. Just within that split second, the outcome of the duel had been determined. Even the golden-scaled guards couldn't react in time. It was not until he was spitting blood vehemently onto the ground did the crowd then react. However, it was all too late. The entire hall was now filled with screams. Heavens! How could this happen? The Crown Prince couldn't even take a single stroke from Prince Yu? And he's even seriously injured. But don't you think that Prince Yu's hand was a little too heavy? I mean, look at the state the Crown Prince is in. I don't think he's able to even move now. That's his own blood brother. The entire banquet hall went silent after Li Moying gave a cold glance around. After seeing such outstanding prowess and strength, who dared to speak nonsense in his presence? The Emperor, Empress, and the Imperial Tutor were especially shocked. The color drained from their faces, and without any regards for ceremonies, they rushed to the side of the Crown Prince. When the Empress saw the state the Crown Prince was in, tears started rolling down her cheeks. The Crown Prince's sword, the brilliant sword, was a third-tier armament and was forged by a famed weaponsmith. It was exceptionally strong and sharp. At this time, the famed sword which had been hit by Li Moying's profound chi suddenly cracked and split into 20 over shards, and they all flew into the Crown Prince's body. Unfortunately, each and every one of them pierced the Crown Prince's meridians. The biggest piece had embedded itself into his dantian. The Crown Prince was covered in blood and had already lost all consciousness. After being stabbed by the shards, his entire body started twitching involuntarily. With one glance at the Crown Prince, the main Imperial Doctor's expression turned extremely ugly. He quickly assessed H's condition and checked the Crown Prince thoroughly, but his expression grew more grim and his head kept shaking. Speak. How's my Imperial son's condition? Stop shaking your head. Quickly, say it. The Empress pressed for an answer in a shaky voice. The Imperial Doctor said, Esteemed Emperor, Empress, the Crown Prince's life is not any danger. The Empress sighed with relief when she heard that. There's no danger to his life. Why didn't you say so earlier? This scared the life out of me. But, the Empress' heart tightened at this moment. What else is there? Quickly, spit it out. You can also listen on. The imperial physician trembled like leaf and grovelled to the ground. Esteemed Emperor and Empress, although His Royal Highness' life is not in peril, however, every single meridian has been wounded by the shards of the brilliant sword. Even if he can recover from the skin trauma, the injuries to the meridians would be difficult to heal. Not only that, the Crown Prince's Dantian has been wounded severely. I'm afraid. His CU, his cultivation. What of his cultivation? The Emperor also felt very anxious and urged the imperial physician to quickly explain. His cultivation will certainly be greatly affected. It would also be difficult to advance in the future. The imperial doctor did not dare raise his head and even lowered it till it touched the ground, not daring to lift it up at all. In fact, what he had just said was a conservative estimate. From his assessment, he wasn't too optimistic about the Crown Prince's condition. As for whether or not the Crown Prince's meridians could be healed was another matter, as no one could make such guarantees. Especially his Dantian's wound, which had been stabbed so severely that wound would need at least a pill that was of the 5th grade. In such a small kingdom of Southview, where can they find such an extraordinary pill? Even if they managed to find it, the other party would not necessarily be willing to sell it. However, such words could not be said. If he said it out, didn't that mean that the Crown Prince could no longer advance in rank? If the anger of the Emperor and Empress gets directed at him instead, this little life of his would be forfeited. In spite of all these, the Empress was already shuddering from the contents she had heard. The Emperor raised his head and his eyes could not suppress the anger he felt. However, faster than the Emperor and Empress was the Imperial Tutor. He strode forward to Li Moying and scowled as he spat out in a furious tone, How dare you use such a heavy and vicious move? Morjuan is your elder brother. Li Moying sneered. Elder brother? You mean him? When he heard such a condescending reply, even the Emperor was further angered. Li Moying, I do not know when you had such a high cultivation, but even if your cultivation is high, how can you act in such an unscrupulous manner? The Imperial Tutor shouted out coldly, even his beard flew out at the sides. The Crown Prince was his disciple that he had been the most proud of. All these years, he had been working so hard on him, coupled with his noble birthright, he was banking on him to provide for him when he grew old. Over the years, he had devoted countless efforts and managed to cultivate the talent that stood at the pinnacle of this kingdom. But now, it was all ruined in the hands of Prince Yu. Even though it was not said out, but based on experience and his expert eyes, it can be seen that the Crown Prince's future cultivation would definitely have a huge impact. Looking at that hateful girl who had embarrassed him earlier still nestled in Li Moying's embrace, the Imperial Tutor got even angrier. Your Majesty don't have to listen to any more nonsense from him. Such a cruel person who even wants his own brother's life is even lower than pig or a dog. This old man here must let him taste how it is to have all his meridians injured. I must get justice for Morjuan. Saying which, he flipped his hand and immediately attacked Li Moying without even waiting for the Emperor's response. Everyone was caught by surprise. Many had recognized this skill. It was the Imperial Tutor's famed skill, Gryzen Fist. Gryzen Fist was a black-grade mid-level profound skill, with its core based on pure power. Coupled with the Imperial Tutor's cultivation at the 4th degree 5th level profound realm, the surrounding air became chaotic as a large howling sound as if summoning a storm swarmed around him. The Emperor's face changed color and quickly shouted out, Imperial Tutor, stop. Seeing that the Imperial Tutor had used almost his full power to exert this move, the Emperor could tell at one glance that he was out to kill Li Moying with that one move. When Li Moying had his duel with the Crown Prince, he revealed his cultivation to have just broken through to the 3rd degree profound realm. You can also listen on. The Emperor was different from the Imperial Tutor. No matter what, Li Moying was his son. Moreover, he was the son of his most beloved woman. Although he had intentionally hurt the crown prince and had incurred the emperor's wrath, he would still not condemn him so easily, what's more put him to death. However, the strength of the imperial tutor was stronger than that of the emperor, who was only at the third-degree profound realm. His own cultivation was not enough to stop him. Seeing that the fist of the imperial tutor had many after-images as he punched directly towards Li Moying, the entire hall was filled with screams and exclamations. However, the person who was at the center of it all did not seem to care, and his gaze carried a hint of disdain. Scram! He spat out a word coldly. His cold and indifferent voice resounded throughout the entire hall. A burst of profound chi burst forth and swept out. The imperial tutor only heard a loud bang in his ear, and he felt dizzy as he felt his consciousness go blur. He was then flung away by the aftershock. Lucky for the imperial tutor, he still had quite a bit of battle experience, and so he could still put up some defense last minute. So instead of flying out like a broken kite similarly to the crown prince, he was only flung backwards, and as he tried to stabilize himself, in his trail was only a path of destruction followed. Left along his trail were 2 deep cracks on the ground. Only after the momentum finally dissipated did he finally come to a complete stop. The imperial tutor's face was flushed red, and he just barely managed to swallow back the fresh blood that rushed up his throat. His eyes were filled with horror. How could this be? He was an expert that was a 4th degree at the 5th level. There was barely anyone in the entire South U that could rival him. For the first time in decades, he had been defeated. However, the most humiliating thing was that his opponent hadn't even dealt a move and had only used a word to coerce him into such a state. How high was Li Moying's cultivation? Wasn't his age similar to the crown prince? And didn't he have a weak constitution since young? Li Moying stepped forward and slowly walked over to the crown prince. The entire hall was silent to the point that even a pin drop could be heard. No one dared to make a single sound. Only Li Moying's footsteps resounded in the vast hall, and each step slowly and deliberately echoed through the entire banquet hall. Li Moying had showed that his strength was simply outrageous and unbelievable. With his public display of might, everyone felt themselves to be small and insignificant, and no one dared to move. Li Moying stopped in front of the crown prince. At this moment, the crown prince had already regained his consciousness and had witnessed the scene of Li Moying sending the imperial tutor flying back. Now the crown prince was no longer as arrogant as before. Since his meridians had all been injured, he was a crumpled heap on the floor as if he was just a lump of mud. Only his eyes were open wide, almost to the point as if they were falling out. They stared in shock and terror as Li Moying approached. Li Moying frostily said, "Such a cruel person who even wants his own brother's life is even lower than pig or a dog." "Well, I concur with this statement of yours, imperial tutor." That year, on the 9th day of winter, the high and almighty crown prince had kicked his weak and trash of a brother into a frozen pond. Is that considered wanting his own brother's life? Or perhaps making his brother who had a weak constitution kneel under the blazing hot sun until he collapses? Does that only then mean that he is lower than a pig or a dog? His face was eerily calm. However, those that heard it all revealed an expression of horror. What Li Moying said, wasn't it referring to the crown prince bullying him when they were young? Did it mean that under that majestic kind mask the crown prince wore, beneath it all was the true face of a twisted person who bullied his own brother in such extreme and cruel means? And that time, they were only 6 years of age, and his younger brother was weak and sick since he was a child. However, looking at the icy and solemn expression on that handsome face, a lot of people could not help but believe his words. Because, with the strength that Li Moying revealed today, showed them that there was no need for him to lie. Even the emperor was stunned silly when he heard the proclamation. "You, Moying, is what you said true? You can also listen on." Li Moying did not answer him directly. His cold gaze was on the crown prince, who had unconcealed malice and hatred written all over his face. "Imperial brother, that year, didn't you say, it's only a piece of trash, with such strength he can't even be considered a person. Even if he's beaten to death, serves him right. Even imperial father wouldn't stand up for him. Do you still remember?" A trace of fear flashed by the crown prince's eyes as he uttered, What do you want? The moment he opened his mouth, a gush of blood rushed out along with 2 teeth, but he could only stay in his miserable position as he was shaking with trepidation. While reminiscing wistfully about that year's matter, Lee Moying had even mentioned, trash, and even if he's beaten to death, serves him right. Don't tell him that he was going to kill him now. Killing you will only dirty my hands. Lee Moying scoffed. This lord only wants to remind Imperial brother, this lord's woman, no one can even think of her, and no one is to even touch a strand of hair on her. Everybody should remember this warning. If there's a next time, that person would not be so lucky to go unscathed as my Imperial brother. His domineering gaze swept by all the other princes. All the other princes were so scared that they lowered their heads in submission. In fact, when Huang Yueli had revealed her talent, a provoking thought had flashed by their scheming minds. Perhaps they should take this chance and ruin the Crown Prince's engagement. And when Lee Moying had confronted the Crown Prince initially, they were very joyous in their hearts, thinking that something might have gone wrong in the head of their second brother, that Waste would shoulder the wrath of the consequence, but they might be able to benefit from that matter. But looking at the situation now, they finally understood what a joke that thought was. And the more the third prince thought about how he had been treating Lee Moying all these years, with all the contemptuous words and various degrading names he'd been calling him, he couldn't stop trembling. Lee Moying turned to look at the emperor once more. Since Imperial Father had mentioned that Master Bai has promised to pair his daughter with the most powerful prince, I don't think anyone would object to the marriage between Leah and I. At that time, we would need to trouble Imperial Father to marry us. Without waiting for the emperor's reply, Lee Moying turned around and wrapped his arms around Huang Yueli's slim waist and led her out. The golden-scaled guards that were guarding the doors all lowered their head, not daring to move an inch, allowing them to leave. Only after they left did they dare to wipe the cold sweat that trickled down their forehead. The emperor stared thoughtfully at Lee Moying's back and looked at the crown prince once again, as if meeting these 2 sons of his for the first time. The empress threw herself on the crown prince and burst into tears. Lee Moying led Huang Yueli out and was walking in the direction towards the main palace doors. Huang Yueli was very reluctant to leave with him. She had been dragging her feet, even though he had held her close, never once had she stopped struggling. Lee Moying was not willing to hurt her, but he also was weary of her desire to escape, so he bent over and scooped her up. MMF, MMF, MMF. Let go of me. Huang Yueli was unable to undo her mute acupuncture point and was also powerless against him, so she could only depend on her pair of slim legs to protest. Lee Moying tightened his hold on her, and under her intense murderous gaze, he held her closer and placed a quick peck on that adorable flushed cheek that was closest to him. With a satisfied look, he laughed lightly and continued walking. A black horse carriage was awaiting them outside the palace gates. Lee Moying brought her in and released her mute point. Huang Yueli flared up and roared at him, "Lee Moying, are you seeking death? What the hell did you do? Why did you blow up our relationship to such a degree? Why must you insist on getting engaged with me? Do you know what are you doing? You can also listen on." In that pair of twinkling charming eyes of his, they seemed to be smiling gently. In a flash, his cold demeanor seemed to have lightened up and his unrestrained smile seemed even more captivating than usual. When Huang Yueli saw that, she felt her cheeks get warmer and her heart was yelling out foul. Lee Moying laughed teasingly, "How do I not know? An engagement, naturally it's to get married. Don't tell me you don't know such a simple reason." Huang Yueli looked back at him, completely stumped. "What are you up to? I thought I've told you the last time we've met. Didn't I express myself clearly that I don't like you? I don't want to be too, The next instance, her lips were blocked. Lee Moying lifted her chin and bit on her lips. Huang Yueli yelped out in shock, but his tongue had sneaked in and he started to desperately kiss her. Huang Yueli even tasted blood in her mouth. This man actually bit her so hard that her lips bled. Huang Yueli straightened her hands to try to push him away, but Lee Moying was unaffected by it and just continued kissing. Only after a long while did her let go of his little fox whose ears and face were flushed red. Huang Yueli was heaving in anger as incoherent words came out. You. When Lee Moying saw her fierce glare, he was even more enthralled. This little girl probably didn't know that when she was angry and biting her lower lip, she looked very charming. However, even if she acted all coy and cute again, he wouldn't let things go her way. He wouldn't be soft-hearted. When Lee Moying thought back on that moment when she declared that she didn't like him, he felt a tearing pain in his heart. His eyes turned cold as he exuded an devilish charm and licked his lips. Little Leah, if you let this lord hear that you don't like me next time, every time you say it, this lord will kiss you. Do you understand? Huang Yueli retorted back angrily, understand? What crap is that? You're just a shameless scoundrel. She then lifted her right hand and a shadowless and formless chi needle flew towards him, and it was aimed towards his most precious part. Lee Moying dodged in the nick of time and avoided the imminent danger and let out a cold sweat. This little girl, after her advancement, the speed of her flying needles had increased by so many-fold. If he wasn't fast enough, he would already be a eunuch. It seems that he must be more careful in future. His face darkened and he reached out to her. Little Aaliyah, it looks like you've still not remembered what this lord said just now. It's all right. This lord don't mind teaching you one more time. Don't nay, MMF. Lee Moying once again touched her soft lips and wanted to give her a deep, lingering kiss. Huang Yueli struggled with all her might and he could only kiss her chin. He looked at her with an affectionate gaze and laughed. How is it? Have you understood? Little Leah, what am I to you? Huang Yueli gnashed her teeth. You are not, Lee Moying raised his eyebrows as he leaned closer to her. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli covered her mouth in a fluster. Lee Moying looked at her with his captivating eyes passionately and his slender fingers tickled her small jaw. Little Leah, so do you now know what am I to you? Huang Yueli shook her head vehemently and tried to avoid his hand. The man had seen through her action and it looked as if he was playing with a little kitten as he pulled her into an embrace. The position was just right, she felt warm and comfortable, a sense of security fleeted by as she felt that if she closed her eyes, she could actually fall asleep. This feeling was something she wasn't used to. Lee Moying turned his fingers and raised her chin, his handsome face approached her and said, Leah, this lord is your fiancé, you have to remember this. Don't let any other man near you. Or else if this lord gets jealous, I don't even know what I would do, got it? Huang Yueli's heart rate accelerated. This Lee Moying was so close to her that she could feel his breath on her skin and for such a groundless matter, it had actually caused her cheeks to flush red. She didn't know how to answer him. In reality, she herself was at a loss and her mind was a complete mush now. Huang Yueli was very clear on one thing, the person she likes was definitely Mu Chengying. In her previous life, when she had died at the northern icefields, that heart-piercing feeling still remained in her chest whenever she thought back about it. However, when Lee Moying had kissed her then, for a moment she had actually threw everything at the back of her head and she was completely immersed and lost in that intense kiss. It was as if in this man's embrace, she could meld completely. What was wrong with her? Was she really such a player? As long as the man was more powerful and domineering, she would be interested in him. However, she had been pursued by many men in the past and they were all fine young men who were extremely talented and came from outstanding backgrounds. They were all proud sons of the heavens but she only had her eyes for one, Mu Chengying. Leah. Seeing her so quiet, Lee Moying raised his brows. Huang Yueli affixed her gaze on the ground and remained silent. This was obviously a sign of rejection. This little fox still refused to answer him. Only because their strength differed by a large margin, she had no way to win him physically so she kept her silence. Lee Moying had understood her meaning and his heart felt a dull ache. In his life, this was the first time he had fallen in love, yet this feeling was overwhelming, it was as if a large wave had brought him along and he had no way to resist, it was as if they were meant for each other, a promise of destiny from their past lives. But why did she not love him back in return? Ouch, pain. Huang Yueli cried out suddenly. Only then did Lee Moying realize that while he was lost in his thoughts, he had actually pinched her chin quite hard. He sighed and recovered his hand. Huang Yueli raised her head and happened to see his dispirited expression. His handsome face no longer had any hint of arrogance or dominance, all there was a look of despair. Her heart skipped a beat as the two of them stared at each other wordlessly. Time seemed to have stopped, as if a magical spell had been woven. It was the next moment when a voice interrupted them. "Master," this subordinate brought third Miss Chin. This unexpected interruption had broken the spell of that magical moment. Li Moying frowned and got up to open the door. Huang Yueli was like a cat who had its tail stepped on. The manner she jumped up and scurried to hide at the corner of the carriage. She brought her hands up and patted her cheeks subconsciously. When she felt that her cheeks were hot, she turned her head defiantly and looked out of the window. "You can also listen on." Strange, how did the scenery look so familiar? Wasn't this the magnificent official road to the palace gates? Huang Yueli blinked twice in bewilderment. Such a long time had passed, yet they were still at the same place. Before she could figure out anything, Li Moying had already returned to her side and in his hands held a familiar chain that was made of sycamore wood. "Jade ice chain?" Huang Yueli exclaimed. Li Moying placed the chain in front of her as he explained, "You're sure heartless, you actually left the chain that I gave you in the palace. I've specially instructed Mo Chi to retrieve it." Huang Yueli finally understood why they were still at the same place despite the long time that had passed. It turned out that they were waiting for Mo Chi. She lightly traced the intricate yet elaborate pattern on the chain with her fingers. Such a fine instrument, she really was quite reluctant to give it up. It has been such a long time since she had came into contact with a chain of such quality, unfortunately. Huang Yueli pushed the chain back in the direction of Li Moying and said, "Your Highness, I'm afraid I cannot accept this chain." Li Moying frowned. "What's the matter? It was you yourself who had requested Imperial Father to bestow you this chain. Moreover, I have already said that I will give this chain to you. Now, you've changed your mind again?" Huang Yueli replied, "Your Highness Prince Yu, this is a keepsake left behind by your mother. If I had known this was something left for you by your mother, I wouldn't have opened this mouth of mine." "What do you mean?" Li Moying's face darkened. He was a clever man. How could he not know what she meant? This jade ice chain was left by his mother, therefore this small thing must have avoided it at all costs and dared not accept it. She was obviously drawing a clear line between them. Although he knew that this little girl had not much affection for him, but every time he saw her act in such a clear-cut manner, he felt really uneasy. Don't see Li Moying's cold and aloof demeanor. His strong and imposing majestic manner, enchanting eyes and his impeccable face was a lethal weapon that could easily cause people to get frostbitten. Although Huang Yueli wasn't the least bit affected by his cold and imposing aura, but when she saw his unhappy face, she closed her mouth subconsciously. She did not know why, but when she saw that Li Moying was angry, she felt very uncomfortable, and when she saw that this had stemmed from her rejection, she felt even more sad. Li Moying's intense gaze locked onto her. Huang Yueli nibbled her lower lip and felt a thread of guilt. But she told herself that she did not do anything wrong. Since the man she likes is Mu Chengying and she was determined to share her affections with him for life, she would not stray off this path. So, no matter how confused she was, she would not waver. She could not return his affections, so unless he had given up pursuing her and just remained purely friends, she would have to give up on him. The two were stubborn to their bones, so they were deadlocked and stared intensely at each other, but none was willing to budge. The things that this lord sends out, there's never been precedence for returns. If you refuse to accept it, then what's the point of holding on to this chain? It's better to destroy it. For a moment there, Li Moying couldn't bear it, but he steeled his heart and with a wave of his hands, he threw the jade ice chain out of the window. Seeing the exquisite chain was about to be thrown out of the window and be reduced to scrapwood, she threw herself out and caught the jade ice chain. "Li Moying, what are you doing? This chain was painstakingly crafted. How could you destroy such a precious thing on a whim? You can't be such a wastrel. And this is what your mother had left behind for you. How could you throw it out so easily? How ungrateful can you be?" Li Moying snorted coldly and turned his head away. Of course he couldn't bear to throw away his mother's keepsake, but he knew that this little thing would definitely save the chain. You can also listen on. How was he so confident? Because, from the very beginning, Her gaze had been fixated on the jade ice chain and she was obviously reluctant to part with it. That was why when he had thrown the chain out, he had suppressed his strength. If it was based on his cultivation level, the chain would have long disintegrated before it even reached the ground and the speed would not have been something Huang Yueli could have caught up with. Huang Yueli was holding on dearly to the chain and looked begrudgingly at him. Li Moying said indifferently, "Anyway, I can't play the chain, either it follows a new owner or accompanies my mother in burial. Is there another choice?" Alright, since you don't care about your mother's keepsake, why should I worry for it in your stead? I'll help you dispose of it." How could she be scared by him? Just now, when she caught the chain, she knew that she had been played yet again and another wave of anger rose up from within. After she said her piece, she was prepared to start. Li Moying saw that she did not get tricked, he could only helplessly block her. "Wait a moment." Alright, don't be so rash." Huang Yueli placed the chain down and turned her head defiantly and gazed at him with a sparkle in her eyes. "What else do you have to say?" Li Moying let out a sigh. "Since you do not want to receive it for nothing, I do have something that I need your help with. This chain can be your reward for helping me." When she heard this, Huang Yueli was slightly taken aback. "You need my help? What's the matter?" Li Moying was at least an expert at the 5th degree profound realm. What did he need a 1st degree profound realm's Ruoqi help for? Li Moying continued, "Do you still remember when we first met? I asked you, when can you be promoted to a 4th tier armament master?" Huang Yueli nodded her head. "That's because I need someone to help me craft out a 4th tier armament. At that time you were only an ordinary person but you could already craft 3rd tier armaments. Now that your cultivation has increased to a 9-level Qi profound realm, crafting a 4th tier armament shouldn't pose any difficulty to you, right?" After she could cultivate, she could already craft out 4th tier armaments. More so because of her special physique and she had such a high affinity to fire, coupled with the sacred phoenix fire, she could even craft out 5th tier armaments if really needed. However, she did not agree to it immediately. She asked suspiciously, "Your Highness Prince Yu, this conversation is pretty interesting. A 4th tier armament master would be hard for a normal person to seek out. But here you are the distinguished expert, any large sects would willingly throw an olive branch to you. Finding a 4th tier armament master should be an easy task. Why do you look for me? It's because your skills are superb. They're the best I've seen. To be able to make an entire set out of 3rd tier armaments and you're even able to enhance it with additional attributes. Such a divine work of art, really amazes me. You're the only one I've seen that can accomplish such a feat. Moreover, what I need is extremely important and I need an unparalleled armament master to help me in this endeavor." When Li Moying said this, he wholeheartedly said the truth of the matter. He looked for her to help him craft his armament not because he fell in love with her at first sight and wanted to bring the little fox home. It was truly because he had admired the fine workmanship and outstanding armaments she crafted. Sometimes, he thinks that this little fox was unfathomable and was like a huge mystery. In a few mere days, she had jumped from an ordinary person to a genius cultivator of the Qi profound realm 9th level. What's more, where had she learned all the skills of an armament master from? This little fox obviously hid a lot of secret. However, he did not want to force her. He was willing to wait for the day when she would trust him from the depths of her heart and take the initiative to reveal everything to him. You can also listen on. In actual fact, Huang Yueli also felt pretty mystified. She had so many secrets yet she had revealed many of them to this man already. Li Moying was the one and only person who knew that she was an armament master, and the only one who knew that just over a week ago, she was really a waste that had 0 cultivation. She truly had revealed a lot of her weaknesses to him. All these weaknesses, each of them could very well let her lose her life. However, the odd thing was, she had never felt worried. In fact, she actually felt even more secure. It was as though sharing secrets with this man was a very normal thing. It seems like it was as if she knew that this man here wouldn't divulge any of her secrets. He would never ever hurt her, never betray her. She sank into contemplation for a moment and nodded her head. "Alright, I'll help you refine an armament. However, you must first tell me what armament do you want?" The profound lunar spirit mirror. Have you heard of this before? What? Profound lunar spirit mirror? Huang Yueli cried out in surprise. You actually want the profound lunar spirit mirror? Li Moying raised his eyebrows and slowly said, You've actually heard of it. The profound lunar spirit mirror was a profound artifact that was intensely yin in nature. It was mainly used to nourish the soul. Having the profound lunar jade as the main component, supported by various materials of the water and wood attribute, the entire process of crafting this was extremely tedious, and it was an intricate process that was very draining. Not only was it difficult to craft out, only a few people would buy it. Because the cultivator's soul was very powerful, hence the higher the cultivation level is, the stronger the soul is, and hence there was no need for cultivators to use this profound lunar spirit mirror. In general, the profound lunar spirit mirror was meant for those ordinary people with weak souls, especially so for those with weak constitution. It was especially effective for those who were born with a terminal illness. And it worked much better for women as it was of the yin energy. However, the profound lunar spirit mirror was at least a 4th-tier armament, or a rare spirit artifact. Many armaments of such tier was not easily affordable, and ordinary people couldn't afford it. Due to the unbalanced demand and supply, very few people even knew the existence of such an item. Even the knowledge of the methods of refining it has almost been lost. Most armament masters have never even heard of this name in their entire lives. This was also contributed to her previous life's knowledge that she knew about it. Huang Yueli replied, The profound lunar spirit mirror is not an ordinary artifact. Most people don't have the requirement for it. May I know why are you spending so much effort to have it made? Why do you want it for? Li Moying's lips curled up and chuckled. Leah, are you curious about me? Are you trying to find out more about me and my background? If you acknowledge yourself to be my fiancé, I'll tell you. Huang Yueli rolled her eyes at him as she coldly replied, Trying to trick me again? No way. A trace of disappointment flashed by his eyes, but he immediately concealed it. Huang Yueli was a little distracted. Li Moying obviously diverted the topic and did not want to tell her the use of him seeking the profound lunar spirit mirror was for. However, generally speaking, wasn't this for young women to continue on with their lives? Which girl was so important for him that he had to expend so much effort to get this profound lunar spirit mirror, and even requesting her to craft it? Little thing, why are you in such a daze? Only then did she come back to her senses. To craft this profound lunar spirit mirror, the materials needed are very complex, especially the profound lunar jade. It can only be found in deep mines and only the veins that produce spirit jades. Moreover, once they leave the spirit vein, they must be refined within an hour, or else it loses its effectiveness. Where are you going to find one? Li Moying replied, I'm not going to hide it from you. Truth be told, I've already found one spirit jade mine. It's just that, it's far from here and it's very dangerous. Well, in order for you to craft this profound lunar spirit mirror, I'll need to trouble you to travel together with me. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes and couldn't help but ask, Where's the place? It's in the dark moon forest. When she heard the place, she was drawn into deep contemplation yet again. The soaring heavens continent was divided into 4 heavenly domains, with the Sky Emperor City as the heart of it. Each heavenly domain's perimeter was lined with extreme dangers, and only the safer regions was where the humans had built their cities upon. Among them, the South Sky region had the Dark Moon Forest, the North Sky region had the Northern Icefields, the West Sky region had the Flowing Sand Desert, while the East Sky region was surrounded by the East Ocean. Amongst them, the Dark Moon Forest and the East Ocean were blessed with abundance. The Dark Moon Forest was home to a large variety of exotic magical beasts. In addition, it had a huge network of spirit jade veins running beneath it. So for Li Moying to find one that had the profound lunar jade was not unusual. This also explained everything. Why did he, a genius-level expert, actually came back to South Yu Kingdom? Li Moying saw that she had remained silent the entire time and probed, I was worried that you do not know the crafting method of the profound lunar spirit mirror, so I had even specially seeked out a manual scroll from Sky Cloud City. Saying which, he pulled out a thin scroll and handed it to her. Huang Yueli took it and flipped through it, and after a long pause, She shook her head. This manual doesn't teach you how to refine the profound lunar jade to its maximum efficiency. Even if it's been successfully crafted, according to this method, it would at best be a 4th-tier armament and there'll be lots of wastage of good materials. Oh, is that so? Li Moying raised his eyebrows. Huang Yueli opened a small compartment in the carriage and from within, she took out a brush. She started scribbling on the scroll as a flurry of brushstrokes started changing the entirety of the contents and she finally passed it back to Li Moying. According to my method, there's a chance to raise the level of the profound lunar spirit mirror to the 5th tier. In this way, the effect of nourishing the spirit can be increased by more than 3 times. However, the materials that you provide me must also be changed. This over here, that one there, there's no need for these. Well, you'll need to top up quite a few materials to the 5th grade instead. Whatever is needed, I've written them all down. Li Moying lowered his head and studied the revised scroll in his hands. There really was a lot of revisions scribbled on it and quite an addition to the list of materials as well. The handwriting of Huang Yueli was like her in person, elegant and graceful. He couldn't take his eyes away for some time. Li Moying chortled, "Little Leah, you really have this gift to be able to bring me surprises time and time again. Are you saying that now you are actually able to craft 5th-tier armaments? And this method for crafting the profound lunar spirit mirror? Initially, I was still worried that you did not know how to craft it. Who knows, not only are you able to, you can even improve on it. I really wonder, how could you have hidden yourself so deep? You're a demon-level genius that just appeared out of nowhere, and what's your master's background?" Cough. Huang Yueli looked at him awkwardly. She had just realized, yet again she had unknowingly divulged her own secret to this man. If it was not for his reminder, she wouldn't even have realized it herself. Only the heavens knew that Soaring Heavens Continent's #1 armament master had always been known to be a very cautious person. Why was it every time she faced this man, it was as if she had been possessed? "Don't worry, whatever you do not wish to talk about, I wouldn't probe. It's never too late to wait for the day for you to reveal it to me yourself." Li Moying looked helplessly at her dazed expression. At least he had gained a little more confidence back. Although this little thing had always prided herself to make him angry, but at least, she had trusted him from the depths of her heart. This could also be counted as a baby step of progress. He laughed to himself bitterly. His life had always been shrouded with peach blossoms. He had always been chased by countless daughters of heaven, but for his little fox, he was reduced to such a tragic state and had to even resort to petty tactics, but he had also fallen willingly. You can also listen on. Not only that, his little fox always seemed to surprise him. Each time when he thought that he had unraveled some of her secrets, she was able to tell him that what he had thought initially was only the tip of the iceberg. She was 100 times more of a gifted genius than he thought she was. Li Moying affixed his gaze on her beautiful and tender face, and saw the bright sparkle in her eyes. His heart softened yet again. What was he to do with this little fox? Each time he looked at her, she seemed to tug his heartstrings from the depth of his soul. Huang Yueli felt an intense gaze on her and she quickly changed the topic. "There's no problem in crafting this armament for you. But, for the Jade Ice Chain to be exchanged for a 5th-tier armament, I seem to be at the losing end. Moreover, I'm putting my own life at risk too. Accompanying you on this trip to refine the profound lunar jade is a highly dangerous job." Her bright doe eyes blinked at him and showed an expression of mixed emotions. With one look, Li Moying knew that this little thing was up to scam people again. Of course, he was more than happy to satisfy her appetite. "That's right, what would you like in return? Just state all your conditions." Huang Yueli replied happily, "This is what you said. You cannot regret it." She immediately took out a piece of paper from the same compartment as her beautiful calligraphy started to fly over the entire paper, and in no time, a long list was written out. Li Moying also smiled when he saw her writing so happily and couldn't wait to see what his little fox had requested for. But the more he read, the more his facial expression started to change. Because the list was really too long, after Huang Yueli had written out a whole page, she actually took another piece of paper out and continued writing. Finally, she put the brush down, picked up the 2 pieces of paper and blew on it. Well, for now, let's start off with these two first. For now. First. Li Moying raised his eyebrows and took the lists from her. On the 2 pieces of papers, all kinds of materials were written. Most of them were all between the 3rd and 4th grades. Although their grades weren't that high, they were a myriad of fantastic oddities of every description. Some were even extremely rare. The oddest thing of it all, these were all not materials for forging, they were all alchemy ingredient. Li Moying looked at her stumped. His throat went dry as he squeezed out, "Little Leah, don't tell me that you are also an alchemist." Huang Yueli smiled sweetly at him, revealing her 2 sharp little teeth. "I also wish that I am one, but unfortunately I am not one yet." "Not one yet," Li Moying followed her and smiled sweetly. "So you mean to say that you aren't one now, but will be one in the future? Well, if I'm in the mood to, I'll consider trying." The requirements to be an alchemist was extremely harsh and demanding. One needed to first have both the fire and wood attributes. In her past life, she had no affinity with wood, hence she did not try her hand at alchemy. In this life, she was blessed with an unparalleled physique and had all the attributes. If she wanted to learn alchemy, according to theory, it shouldn't be too difficult. It just that Huang Yueli knew that to delve oneself into studying too many things, it would easily influence one's cultivation. In her previous life, between herself and Mu Chengying, their cultivation levels had not much of a difference. However, she had spent too much time and energy on armaments, and the moment they broke through the 9th degree realm, in terms of battle strength, even 10 of her could not beat him in a duel. That was why she temporarily had decided not to waste her time on alchemy. Anyway, the road of an armament master was a wealthy one, and their status was no less of an alchemist. If she wanted any type of pills, she could easily get her hands on one. Li Moying shook his head wryly, he had no doubts of what she said. "I wonder, in the end, what kind of surprise would you give me?" Huang Yueli lifted her chin up proudly and said, "Less nonsense now, quick. Have a look. After you've looked through my list, tell me if you can promise them. You can also listen on." Li Moying solemnly replied, "These materials are very common, not a problem there. Some herbs on the list are more rare, however with my connections, it should take no longer than a few days to gather them." "But, why do you want so many spirit beast cores for?" 9 5th grade spirit beast cores, 4 6th grade spirit beast cores, and they all have to be of the fire attribute as well. To attain these items, even for a 6th degree cultivator, it's a hefty sum. Huang Yueli groaned and lamented, "So even for the high and almighty 1,000 treasure pavilion owner, Your Highness Prince Yu, is unable to produce a 6th grade spirit beast core? I'm already being very polite here. Originally, I had wanted to write down a 7th grade spirit beast core, but thinking about it, you'll definitely not be able to attain one, so I've even taken extra consideration and did not write it down." "You still need a 7th grade spirit beast core?" Li Moying was shocked. Huang Yueli nodded her head thoughtfully. "Yes, I've got an important use for it." All these materials that she had requested for were all taken from the records of the 9 Phoenix transformations. These were essential for breakthrough to the next realm. The materials needed were plentiful and diverse. However, the hardest part of it all was that it needed so many high-grade spirit beast cores. These were simply items that even if one had wealth, they might not be able to attain. Since Li Moying wanted her to craft for him a 5th grade armament, she might as well make use of this opportunity and pass on the most daunting task to him. After all, with one look, this man's background was powerful, he definitely had avenues to get these items. Moreover, the fees to engage the expertise of an armament master to customize an armament was also high. This was what she called a fair trade. At most, she received a little bit more. However, she still had some conscientiousness and had removed the most expensive and the most difficult item on the list, the 7th grade spirit beast core. 7th grade spirit beast cores were scarce and extremely rare, and the price was also staggering. The price of one was more than tens of times of one 6th grade spirit beast core. To slay one 7th grade spirit beast was extremely difficult, even if a cultivator was at the 8th realm. Not all cultivators at the 8th realm might be able to accomplish it. Li Moying was only 20 years old and his wealth accumulated might not be enough to get a 7th grade spirit beast core. Huang Yueli simply did not want to make things too difficult for him and she was planning to head over to Sky Cloud City in the future. When she's there, she wreck her brains to think of a way to earn money to buy one. Li Moying held the 2 lists and scrutinized them carefully, to the point that even Huang Yueli was feeling slightly impatient. I say, Your Highness, are you done looking at them? How is it? Are you agreeable? Li Moying didn't reply as he reached out for the brush and wrote something on the paper. Huang Yueli twisted her lips. This man was such a miser. He was even bargaining. How could he be so stingy? In her past life, those that had commissioned her to personally craft armaments for them were even willing to pay 100 times more. And whether she accepted it or not was another story. It depended entirely on her mood. After he finished writing, he folded the paper and placed it in her hands. All right, it's a deal. What's a deal? I haven't even agreed to it yet. Huang Yueli unfolded the paper in a fluster and quickly scanned for the parts he had edited out. Who knew, the moment she saw it, she was immediately dumbstruck. On that piece of paper, there wasn't anything that was edited out, but an addition of a small sentence. At the bottom of the list, Li Moying had added in, 7th grade spirit beast core. Yo, you want to help me find a 7th grade spirit beast core? Huang Yueli's eyes were wide open as she stared at him incredulously, unable to believe what was happening. Li Moying chuckled. Why? Didn't you say that you wanted it? But, you're really able to get our hands on one? Li Moying replied, the rest of the items aren't hard to find, I'll be able to deliver them to you within 10 days. As for the 7th grade spirit beast core, the time taken for that would be longer. I'll try my best to get it for you as soon as I can. You can also listen on. She had clearly said that she did not need his help, but he had willingly offered to help her solve the most difficult problem she faced. Why was he doing his? She was really not worth him doing so much for her. Because, she already has someone in her heart and could not respond to his feelings. Li Moying smiled. How? Are you moved? If you feel touched, you know how to repay me. Saying which, he hooked his hand around her willow waist and his handsome face approached her. Their 2 noses seemed to have touched and their breaths could be clearly felt on each other. Huang Yueli knew that the man wanted to kiss her and she felt that she should not let this misunderstanding happen anymore. But at this moment, it was as if she had yet again been struck at her acupoint and she couldn't move. Li Moying came closer, and closer. Just as that soft and sensual lip was about to touch hers, there was a sound from outside the carriage. Reporting to the Lord, we have already reached the outskirts of the city. Would the Lord and Miss Bai be alighting? Huang Yueli felt as if she had just been roused from a dream and fiercely struck his chest and pushed him away. Damn it! Li Moying was struck on his chest, although he wasn't injured, but it was still quite painful because no matter what, Huang Yueli was now a 9th level Qi Profound Realm cultivator. Her strength was much more than before. He let out a sigh. He really wanted to hack that idiot who ruined his moment. That Mo and Mo sigh had spoilt everything. So close. Almost. Just a bit more and this would have been the moment that his little fox had willingly accepted his kiss. It was no longer one-sided. It would have been the first affectionate kiss between his little fox and him. Just great, now that the little fox has reeled back, to let her be good and let him kiss her. He really didn't know when would that ever happen. Huang Yueli pulled up the curtains and was surprised. Where are we? Weren't you sending me home? Why have you brought me to such a place? It wasn't her making a mountain out of a molehill and trying to pull a fuss, but this place was really. The place the carriage was brought to a stop to was the barren hillside cemetery in the outskirts of the city. What's more, it was almost night. It was dark and the sky was overcast, as a cold howling wind eerily blew by. There were little specks of light that littered the surroundings as they glowed brilliantly. If it was another girl, she'll definitely break down and cry. Was there something wrong with Li Moying's head? Even if he did not want to send her home, well, she had never heard of anyone bringing a girl to the graveyard for a date. The smile on Li Moying's face had faded and he quietly looked out the window. When did I ever say that? I was sending you home. But, Come, I'll take you to a place. Li Moying held her hand and led her out of the carriage. Huang Yueli struggled initially, but after a few attempted, she stopped and could only helplessly follow him. Outside the carriage, all his personal guards stood at rapt attention on each side in a somber respect. Li Moying zoomed in and glared at Mo Sai. After receiving that deathly glare from Li Moying, Mo Sai couldn't help but a cold chill ran down his spine. But he was still clueless. Whenever the carriage arrived at its destination, it had always been their practice to announce to the Lord. He really didn't know what he did wrong. Li Moying led Huang Yueli off the beaten track as they trudged along a small rocky path without any light. Until at last, after heading to the edge of the northeast corner of the cemetery, Li Moying finally came to a stop. Huang Yueli looked around her surroundings and found that it was a very luxurious grave in front of them. Although it wasn't very big, but the tombstone was made entirely out of snow-gold stone and it reached up to 10 feet. Even the steps were constructed out of snow-gold stone. Snow-gold stone was a fourth-tier material for armament. To lay such a large area was absolutely astronomical. This tomb definitely belonged to someone who had extraordinary origins. You can also listen on. While Huang Yueli was still studying the tombstone, she heard Li Moying start to speak. This is the tomb of my imperial mother. Huang Yueli froze. Lady Mingfei? Li Moying was calm and nodded. However, isn't Lady Mingfei a first-ranked imperial concubine? According to the rules, shouldn't she be buried in the royal mausoleum? Why is she? Li Moying clenched his jaw tight. Without saying a word, his eyes were complex and revealed a deathly chill. Under the moonlight, his face was dim and dark. Huang Yueli closed her mouth subconsciously and peeked at him inquiringly. Li Moying, are you all right? Li Moying did not speak but suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her to the side. Hey, you, Li Moying blocked her mouth with his finger. Sure, don't talk, I just want you to sit with me for a while. Just sit quietly beside me. Huang Yueli did not speak further and let him lead her as they sat on the steps of the grave. Li Moying was obviously in a bad mood and Huang Yueli just sat by his side, in quiet accompaniment. Both of them sat side by side in this dark, desolate cemetery in complete silence. If it was an average girl, she would long have been terribly scared, but Huang Yueli was not the least bit affected as all her attention was gathered on this man. Although Li Moying did not say anything, she could feel his inner turmoil and overwhelming sadness. What had happened to Lady Mingfei? Huang Yueli suddenly remembered what Li Moying said today at the banquet hall after he had injured the crown prince. That year, on the 9th day of winter, the high and almighty crown prince had kicked his weak and trash of a brother into a frozen pond. Is that considered wanting his own brother's life? Or perhaps making his brother, who had a weak constitution, kneel under the blazing hot sun until he collapses? Does that only then mean that he is lower than a pig or a dog? When she heard this, her heart was shocked in its entirety as she felt thread of sadness as well. Looking at his quiet and solemn self now, there seems to be a tragic past buried beneath. Without thinking, Huang Yueli put her hands on Li Moying's shoulder. She didn't know why, but she just wanted to comfort him. When Li Moying felt her gentle touch, his rigid body quivered. Immediately after, he pulled her into his arms as he wrapped her in a tight embrace. If it was under any normal circumstances, Huang Yueli would definitely have been on guard and went hysterical. But at this moment, she just nudged him gently and said softly, "You're squeezing me too tight, I can't breathe." Li Moying relaxed his hold on her. Huang Yueli was relieved and heard the man's deep voice beside her ears. "My imperial mother passed away when I was 6 years old." But I heard people say that Lady Mingfei had lost her life due to a difficult birth. Yes, there was such a rumor going about out there. That's because when my mother gave birth to me, she really had a difficult time. I was so thin, I could barely survive. The Empress took the opportunity to make rumors spread and say that my imperial mother was a person without a clear background. That was why the prince was born this way. That's why, after I was born, my imperial mother was placed under house arrest. Huang Yueli said nothing but reached out and hugged him. Li Moying held her tighter and continued to talk about his past. Because the Empress family was strong at that time, hence my imperial father did not dare go against her. The Empress and the Crown Prince took every opportunity and tried every means and ways to scheme against us. Until that year when I was 6, Imperial Mother passed away due to a serious illness and she was not even recognized as part of the royal family and could not even be buried in the royal mausoleum. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's heart skipped a beat. In her vision, she seems to see a small and lonely Li Moying, with his weak and frail stature. He was pushed down over again and again by the Crown Prince who was much stronger than him. This image made her heart wince in pain. No wonder I've said it before, that the Empress and Crown Prince are both not good things. They've actually bullied you before. I will help you get your revenge. I'll make sure they will reap their rightful rewards. Huang Yueli huffed angrily as she declared the words that were in her heart. Li Moying was actually feeling down and emotional. He didn't expect that when he heard her words, he could not help but laugh. You're really a ferocious little fox. Nope, more like a tigress. But, I like it. Li Moying. Who did you say was a tigress? Huang Yueli looked at him with puffed-up cheeks. Under the cascading moonlight, it illuminated her little angry face. Yet this miraculously washed away all his unhappiness and pain that had been buried in his heart. It was as if they were blown away by the wind. But Huang Yueli found it strange as she tilted her head in query. With your current cultivation, you could have easily dealt with that horrid mother and son pair. Why should you need to endure and put up with them? It's because my imperial mother still loved my imperial father deeply, so her last words to me was to vow that no matter I am not allowed to harm my siblings, or else my imperial father would be sad. When he said that, he let out a long and deep sigh. His imperial mother was really too silly. It wasn't worth it to do it to this point. Ah! Huang Yueli exclaimed out, but just now in the banquet hall, you've beaten the Crown Prince to such a state. Li Moying furrowed his brows and laughed coldly. So what? If he did anything else, I would have let it pass, but he wanted to snatch my woman. If I could still endure, can I still call myself a man? Stop talking nonsense. I'm not your woman. Although her face was scowling, in her heart she felt warm. This man, just because of a simple promise to his mother, he had spent all these years living such a tragic life, being constantly pushed about by his other siblings, bullied and scorned by all. He could actually still endure all these humiliations, but when because of her, he revealed his own strength. No wonder. He was so emotional today and had came over to his mother's tombstone even at such an hour. I'm sorry, I made you go back on your vow. Huang Yueli softly said as she looked at him meekly. Li Moying looked back at her. This time his eyes were filled with gentleness. I don't blame you. I've long lost my tolerance to those idiots. After showing my hand today, it was clear that I should have not waited till this day. I should have beaten them up much earlier. It's such a waste that today we were pressed for time and I didn't use much strength. Huang Yueli laughed gleefully and added, Yup. I've also thought that your punches were too light. Next time we'll go together and beat them up till their own mother can't recognize them. All right. It's a promise. The two of them joked and laughed, under this dark and bleak environment. When they were about to leave, Li Moying knelt down respectfully and kowtowed a few times to his mother's tombstone. Huang Yueli followed suit in paying her respects. When Li Moying stood up, he saw her and couldn't help but laugh. Why? Have you finally acknowledged that you are this lord's fiancé and you're paying respects to your future mother-in-law? Huang Yueli couldn't be bothered and rolled her eyes at him. It's because I've taken Lady Mingfei's jade ice chain, so I'm thanking her for it. Please do not let your imagination run wild. Li Moying laughed and suddenly lowered his head and stole a kiss. Before she could freak out, he retreated swiftly and laughed very happily like a cat that had just stolen a fish. You can also listen on. Since this little fox was already not courteous with her words, but perhaps he was letting his imagination run wild because when he heard it again, they didn't seem to have the previous unbearable heartache. Because now, he could already feel that something between them has changed. The night was dark. Southview Palace. Morduan, my son. How could you been so deeply injured? What's your mother to do? The Empress was crying by his side. The CP was lying motionless on his bed, his eyes were dull and listless, his heart felt empty and dead. He could feel that the profound chi in his own body was slowly dissipating. In just a night, he had fallen from a 7th stage defensive profound realm to a 5th stage. If he could not be healed in time, he was afraid he would be turned into a waste and had no more chance in continuing his cultivation. Enough. Stop crying. What have you become? In front of your son, what's with all this crying? The Emperor strode in anger and bellowed when he saw this sight. The Empress immediately screamed back, "So what if I cry? Now that your Majesty has such a powerful second prince by your side, there's no longer a need to care about Morjuan. Is that right? Li Moying is so malicious, he had injured Morjuan to such a state, yet your Majesty is not the least concerned." When the Emperor heard her words, he was even angrier. "Why am I not concerned?" Well, this matter was first brought upon by Morjuan himself. He wanted to challenge his own brother and he lost at that. It's he himself who was too weak. He was too arrogant and wanted to humiliate Moying. He thought he had the upper hand and wanted to bully him but lost instead. How is it Moying's fault? It was obviously the strong trying to bully the weak. Shouldn't he reflect on himself? The Empress screamed back even louder this time round. "Anyway, your Majesty's heart had always been that little slut and her bastard child, isn't that so? Now that he can cultivate, your Majesty must be so happy. Can't wait to depose the Crown Prince's title and pass it to that bastard. As for my poor Morjuan, if he dies, that would be less of an eyesore, isn't it?" "Shut up." The Emperor heard her provocative drivel that he lost all reason and raised his hands, and with a loud resounding pa sound, he had slapped her resplendently across her face. The Empress was stunned. She held her swollen cheek and stared at him incredulously. That year, the Emperor's father was also a 4th-degree expert. In the South Yu Kingdom, he had an unmovable position in the kingdom, South Yu Kingdom's genera. Most of the military commanders had all trained under him. That was why in the imperial harem, she had always been fearless and even arbitrarily killed and suppressed other princes. The Emperor had no ways to control her and could only keep silent. But today, he had actually hit her. This was the first time he dared to fight back. You. The Emperor gnashed his teeth and said, "Empress, you are the mother of the kingdom. Please don't speak like a shrew, speaking such vulgar words. If you don't know basic courtesy and shame, Jin can look for someone else to sit in this position." The Emperor had actually spoken of deposing the Empress. The Empress suddenly recalled that her father had passed away the year before and she had not been so rampant and arrogant as the past. She actually still had the Crown Prince that she could rely on, with his strength and talent that was far beyond all the other princes. Her position as the Empress was supposed to be very stable. However, that hateful Li Moying, who was the bastard son of that slut, suddenly became more powerful than her son. The Emperor looked at her coldly. "After Mingfei passed away, you had said before that you would take Moying as your own. If not for him divulging those horrendous events, Jin will still not know that you are such a black-heart woman. You've actually taught Morjuan to harm his own brother. You're more vicious than a snake. You can also listen on." No, it's not like this. The Empress desperately wanted to wash herself clean of these accusations. That was that bastard. It was Prince Yu's own ramblings. We have never done such things to him before. It's all his own shameless accusations. Your Majesty should not believe such nonsense. The Emperor looked at her with an even colder gaze. Is it nonsense? You know it in your heart. Jin has already found the nanny in the Minghua Palace to verify everything. The Empress quivered in fear and fell to the ground. The Emperor glanced at her and said, "Today's matter was all brought about by Morjuan's own undoing. You don't need to push the blame to others. But no matter what, Morjuan is still my son. I will not leave him to fend for himself. I've already sent people to head over to Sky Cloud City to look for the Soul Revolution's pill that the Imperial Doctor has mentioned. No matter what the price, we will get it. Stop continuing to shame me. You'd better get a grip on yourself." As soon as the Emperor left, the Empress collapsed and cried. "Imperial, Mother." Suddenly, she heard the faint voice of Li Morjuan. The Empress rushed to the side of the bed. "Morjuan, how are you?" "Imperial Mother," cough, The crown prince coughed a few times and struggled to speak. I hope, Imperial Father finds the pill, is unrealistic but, we have no choice, Imperial Mother, must, quickly write to Seventh Sister, return to the kingdom, Tiana? The Empress was surprised. Seventh Princess Li Tiana was also the only other child the Empress had, she was the crown prince's own blood sister, both were outstanding geniuses. Maybe, she has, a way, how could it possibly be? Your talent is higher than her, moreover you are the core disciple of Celestial Light Academy, but even you aren't able to get your hands on the Soul Revolution's pill. Your sister just entered the academy last year, her level isn't even like yours, what ways would she have? There was a hint of hope in the crown prince's eyes. Imperial Mother doesn't know that she is an armament master's disciple. The Empress had all along been in South Yu Kingdom and did not know how rare and illustrious an armament master was. Although, the princess was less talented than her brother, but because of her potential to become an armament master, even in Celestial Light Academy, she was a highly regarded disciple. Moreover, she was accepted as a disciple by a 4th-grade armament master in the academy. A 4th-grade armament master. What luck and prestige was this? Although Li Tiana still did not have such a high status, but for her master to get his hands on a 5th-tier pill for his beloved disciple wouldn't pose much difficulty. The Empress did not understand what was so great about being an armament master's disciple, but nevertheless, once she heard her son's affirmation, she immediately agreed. All right, Morjuan. I'll go right to your sister, so go and have a good rest. On the other hand, Huang Yueli had stayed an entire night with Li Moying at the cemetery. Only until the first rays of sun streaked through the clouds did Li Moying send her home. The carriage stopped in front of her yard. The moment Huang Yueli opened the door, her eyes widened in horror. What? What is all this? How are there so many people? In front of her courtyard, it was bustling with activity as the entire entrance was packed with various carriages and sedans. Many different nobles were wearing their best and crowded around the doors, pleading with the guards to let them in. This big brother, please let me in, I just want to meet with Third Miss and apologize to her in person. Yeah. That year, this young lady wasn't sensible and once said something disrespectful to Third Miss. As her mother, I have to make sure this ignorant girl will face up to her mistakes and apologize to Third Miss. You can also listen on. Some others even yelled out in excitement. Big brother guard, I'm not the same as those others who have no eyes. I did not offend Third Miss, but I just want to pay my respects to our South Yu's #1 genius. I am here to offer gifts to Third Miss. Yes, please let us in, big brother. The guard was already at his limit and was just about to close the door when Cai Wei peeked out from behind. Once the people saw her, they swarmed over to her and she was immediately surrounded. Isn't this Miss Cai Wei? Miss Cai Wei, this box of jewelry is for you. Please say something nice for me in front of Third Miss. Miss Cai Wei is actually at the first level of the Qi Profound Realm. No wonder you're the person by Third Miss' side. Such talent, really impressive. All kinds of flattery started to clamor around her. Cai Wei was not used to such a situation and with a pale face, she stood there stunned, not knowing how to react. Huang Yueli couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing such a scene, these should be the people who have heard of her greatness yesterday and hurried over first thing in the morning to flatter her. She had revealed her talent, such an outcome of people trying to flatter her was within her predictions. However, she had not expected that these people were so fervent that they even seeked out Cai Wei and had even called her Miss Cai Wei. Looking at these people, Huang Yueli could clearly remember that among those that had called her Miss, several of them had previously bullied by Ruoqi and even hit Cai Wei. Hearing the laughter of Huang Yueli, Cai Wei immediately looked and shouted out, Third Miss, you are back. As if there was a large clap of thunder, the moment everyone heard this, everyone turned around and rushed towards Huang Yueli. Miss Bai, you are back. We have all been waiting. Miss Bai is really a phoenix among all dragons and phoenixes. The air you exude is. The corner of Huang Yueli's mouth twitched as she looked at Cai Wei. You. This stupid girl. Don't you know how to think? Why did you have to be so loud and brought all these people over? How could she return home with all this fanfare? If she had known earlier, she would have snuck through the back door. Leah, what's wrong? Standing here without moving, do you mean that you want this lord to send you in? At this time, a deep voice came from behind. Immediately after, a powerful arm encircled her waist. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. His Royal Highness Prince Yu. It's His Royal Highness. Li Moying lowered his head and gave an intimate kiss on the head of the woman in his embrace as he teased with light laughter. Little Leah, so many people are surrounding you. Tell me, are they bullying you? Whoever is disrespectful to you, let this lord know. Once his words landed, again as if a clap of thunder, everyone scattered immediately. Everyone retreated back quickly. With this retreat, each person took at least 10 steps back. Of course, everyone had also heard about Prince Yu's achievements. Compared to Huang Yueli as a genius cultivator, Prince Yu's talent was simply shocking to the point that brought them terror. Towards Huang Yueli, they still dared to try their luck to bridge some connections and hound her. But facing the Prince Yu who could even defeat the imperial tutor in one move, no one dared to muster their guts to face him, lest it displeases him and they dig their own graves instead. Huang Yueli turned and scowled at him when she saw him smile leisurely and staring at her in such a teasing manner. She scoffed at him. Show off. Sooner or later, she would become as powerful as him. You can also listen on. Li Moying laughed as he gently held her waist and personally led her in. I will pick you up in 3 days. Huang Yueli nodded her head. Last night, the two had agreed that 3 days later they would set off for Dark Moon Forest in search of the profound lunar jade and craft the profound lunar spirit mirror there. However, after the words had been said, Li Moying still did not let go and remained motionless at the entrance. Huang Yueli was speechless for a moment. Your Highness Prince Yu, it's getting late, please go back. Bye. Only then did Li Moying loosen his grip and slowly backed off. Huang Yueli let out a sigh of relief, thinking that he was just about to leave. In that instance, she felt her wrist was being pulled and Li Moying tugged her gently, and the next moment, she was brought into his embrace and his hot lips covered hers. Huang Yueli started hitting him on his shoulders. This kiss was very passionate, but it was not a long one. After a short while, Li Moying raised his head. Little Leah, I'm going to repeat myself once more. Remember my name. If I hear you call me Your Highness Prince Yu the next time round, Pavilion Lord, hey, pervert, or any other names that I don't like, then, his fervent eyes looked at her slightly swollen crimson lips that he had kissed, full of threat. Huang Yueli was raging within. She really wanted to slap this man silly. How could he kiss her in front of so many people? Moreover, he even said such overbearing words. However, she did not beat him or even think of any ways to get back at him. She knew that she wasn't his opponent. Li Moying saw her scrunched up face that huffed at him in arrogance and left in satisfaction. After he left, those bootlickers started clamoring over her again as they surrounded her once again. Third Miss is sure blessed with fortune, to be engaged with such an outstanding man, Prince Yu. Yes, yes. Prince Yu and Third Miss are both top talents and are a match made in heaven. Miss Bai, congratulations to you. May I know when are you getting married? Damn it all. All these jibber-jabber, and now even rattling such nonsense. Huang Yueli angrily stomped in and yelled out to Cai Wei, get those flies away. Those that refuse to budge, just beat them up. Let's see who still dares make a fuss at my house. Don't blame me for being strict. Beat up anyone you see. See one, beat one. Cai Wei nodded her head, yes miss. There's one more thing. What's the matter? Huang Yueli stopped in her tracks. Early this morning, Master personally brought Madam to your courtyard and are waiting for you in the hall. What? Who asked you to let them in? But, it's Master after all, Cai Wei stuttered as she tried to explain herself as much as she could until Bai Liujing had already strode out. Oh, Leah, you're finally back. Second uncle had been waiting for a long time. You've made a name for our family. I'm so proud of you. If your father knows of it, I'm sure he would be very happy as well. Bai Liujing was all smiles, and very enthusiastic, as if Bai Ruoqi was his very own daughter as he fawned all over her. His wife who stood behind him had on an awkward expression. Huang Yueli laughed coldly, Second uncle doesn't seem to know that this time, I could reveal my strength was all thanks to second sister's willingness to sacrifice. I'm really touched by her dedication to let me use her as a stepping stone, otherwise, how could I have such an opportunity? You can also listen on. Bai Liu Jing's face cramped up for a second there, but he quickly changed back to his smiley face in the blink of an eye. Ha ha ha, regarding Chia's matter, she herself has to be responsible. We'll talk about this another time, another time. Come here, Leah, quickly sit down. Second uncle has specially brought over this year's most prized famous tea. One small box costs 100 silver, come and try it. He behaved as if he was in his own home serving an important guest. His act of a good uncle really made one nauseous. Huang Yueli stood at the same spot and scoffed. Second uncle, if you aren't here about second sister's matter, coming over uninvited, so to what do I owe the pleasure? TSK, you little girl, Bai Liu Jing called out in an exaggerated manner. We are a family and I am your own uncle. Can't I just come over to visit? I've especially came all this way to visit you, you've really misunderstood your uncle. Oh. Huang Yueli had on an indifferent expression. Bai Liu Jing almost couldn't hold on to this facade any longer, but with regards to all the rumors that had spread from the palace, he still had to work harder. That damn girl was actually a 6th grade talent and had been hailed as South U's #1. It was a matter of time for such geniuses to soar into the skies. It wasn't something he could prevent. Of course, she was still young, but if based solely on her talent, her current strength was still not very strong. But her luck was really too shocking. She was even engaged to Prince Yu. Moreover, looking at their intimate behavior at the door just now, it looks like this girl's position in Prince Yu's heart isn't just ordinary. Without the knowledge of Prince Yu's exact talent or cultivation, but at such a young age, he could already defeat the imperial tutor. Just great. Now that this damn girl has the backing of Prince Yu and she now stood in the limelight. He really regretted that all these years, their relationship had been throttled to such an extent. If he doesn't quickly try to recover and build up their relationship, he was afraid she'd come back knocking for revenge. Thinking about this, Bai Liu Jing decided to throw away all his pride and ego and rush head on. Leah, first of all, second uncle came to congratulate you on gaining the first place at the Peach Blossom Banquet. Also congratulations on your engagement to Prince Yu. This truly is such a blessing for our family. Second uncle must definitely throw a big banquet for you to celebrate it. Huang Yueli only replied patronizingly, ha ha. Bai Liu Jing didn't seem to mind and continued, there's also another matter. The last time you had mentioned about taking over all the businesses that Big Brother had left behind. As he has too many businesses, it's also very troublesome to take stock. But second uncle had worked through the entire night to sort out all the accounts. Here it is, quick, come and take a look. Immediately after, Bai Liu Jing took out a stack of account books and passed it to her. Huang Yueli flipped through them casually and realized that Bai Liu Jing was very generous. It seemed that he had handed her almost all the shops that the family owned. What was even more rare was that these shops were all still raking in profit. According to her understanding, over the past few years, some shops had been losing money. In the span of one night, Bai Liu Jing had turned them all into profits. He must have dug deep into his own pockets and threw in a large sum into these accounts. Wow, he really was willing. Huang Yueli took the account books and deeds. She smiled lazily and slowly said, the performance of these shops aren't too bad. It's been hard on you all these years, second uncle. It's not too hard. Not too hard at all. Our Bai family have reached such a position this day, isn't it all due to Big Brother's contribution? I can only manage them well to live up to my brother's expectations. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.